We are in the middle of anxiety week, and I'm super excited about this because I'm somebody who has struggled with anxiety for a large part of my life. For more than 2 decades, anxiety was a chronic and debilitating issue for me. I have 2 kids that struggle with anxiety. I know that it is a struggle for many of you. There's a documented rise in anxiety, and so we are spending an entire week talking about tools that you can use to understand anxiety, to break apart the thinking habits in your mind, to catch the triggers, and that's what we're talking about today, the triggers that are triggering you to feel anxious before you even realize that it's starting, and what you can do with science, particularly something called anchor thoughts, to quiet your mind, to settle your body, to stop the agitation, and to get control in a moment where normally you would spin out of control. So today we're going to talk about triggers. If you missed yesterday's training, it's very important that you watch it. So on day 13, we talked about the connection between worrying and anxiety, and how the habit of worrying about things in the future, things that make you feel uncertain, things that are out of your control, things that you shouldn't worry about at all. Oh, here comes our son. It's 7 o'clock in the morning. Sweetheart, I will be done with this training in about 15 minutes, okay? He doesn't look worried at all today. So interesting, that's a trigger for me. So we're talking about triggers today, and triggers are, do I know where your phone is? It's in the pocket of my coat that I wore when I tucked you in last night. I'm single parenting it today, so thank you for your patience with the the fact that I needed to help Oakley along. I got to get him to school this morning before I catch a flight to San Francisco. That's a trigger for me. That when something unexpected happens when I'm on a live stream, my stomach immediately gets tight. My thoughts don't go, uh-oh, just yet. My body tenses up. And triggers are a very important thing for you to bring out of the woodwork. And the reason why is there are things that happen to you all day long that trigger tense feelings in your body, that trigger your body to remember situations from your childhood that made you feel out of control or anxious or unsafe. It's things that happen that trigger you to start bracing yourself. And so one of the things that we're going to do now that we've already talked about worrying, and we've talked about the connection between worrying and anxiety, and we've talked about the fact that worrying becomes a habit, and it's a habit that you need to break. And if you haven't watched that training, just go to YouTube. It's video number 13, and it's all about the connection between worrying and anxiety. Today, we're going to go a little deeper. So yesterday, I asked you to go through your day and start to notice the things that you worry about. And many of you wrote to us and said that the list was long, and even seeing the list was overwhelming. That's totally okay. We got to get this stuff out of the dark in order to help you fix it and solve the habit of worrying and teach yourself how to be a much more deliberate thinker. Today, let's go a little bit deeper because we did get a question. Danielle, could you put the questions in the text chain, because I could not pull up the email this morning that had the production sheet. We got an email, a comment that was all about worrying yesterday, and I'm not going to remember it directly, but I can paraphrase it. Oh, here it is. Mary Carmen Gamero. That's Mary Carmen Gamero. I'm sorry, I'm so all over the place this morning. Thank you for your patience. It's a crazy morning before I have to get on a plane to San Francisco, and I'm doing this alone, and I'm a little overwhelmed because the kids are starting to get up. But I'm not going to worry about that. I'm just going to keep on going. Yes, here it is. Thank you. Martha Lester Smith. This all makes so much sense to me, but I'm struggling with catching myself in the moment and redirecting. I can often look back and see where and when my mind went to the negative to the worry, but I don't catch myself in the moment. Any suggestions? Martha, that's not uncommon because the thought pattern of drifting to the future and starting to ruminate and worry about something that's outside of your control or that doesn't matter right now, or an issue or worrying is not going to make an impact. It's such a habit that most of us aren't even aware when our minds are doing it. So this is going to be a new skill. Have patience with yourself. The reason why we're talking about triggers today is because if you have trouble catching yourself in the moment, one of the most effective things that you can do is you can do an audit of your day, and you can identify all of the situations, the people, and the time of days or experiences that you have that trigger you to feel uneasy, or that trigger you to start to worry, or that trigger you to brace yourself. And by going through your day and doing an audit and identifying those moments or times a day where you're tense or where you're on edge or where you anticipate that bad things are going to happen or it's something that you worry about, knowing the triggers in advance gives you a tremendous amount of power because it allows you to pre-plan what you're going to do in response to that trigger. So let me give you an example. I want you today, here's your homework, to go through your day, and I want you to go step by step by step from the moment you wake up. When are the moments that you worry? What are the situations that you're in throughout your day that trigger you to be tense? And after you go from the moment you wake up to the moment you get into your bed, the next thing you're going to do is you're going to go and identify, are there people in your life that trigger you to worry? So, for example, when you wake up, are worries the first thing on your mind? Does just waking up and thinking about your day trigger worry? If so, write about it. Does walking into the kitchen and eating breakfast trigger worry? Are you starting a new eating plan and it's overwhelming and you're doubting yourself? Does the idea of getting out of the house, this was one that was surprising to me because I don't have this one right now, but in reading so many comments from you as you've been sharing your worries and sharing the things that you struggle with, just getting out of the house is a cause of major distress for many of you. And if that's you, give me a thumbs up or give us a heart so people know that they're not alone. And that was me when Chris and I were facing all of the major issues that we had 10 years ago, from bankruptcy to alcoholism to fighting nonstop and just starting the day, just getting out of the house. Boy, did that make me brace myself because it made me have to face the issues that I was dealing with in my life. Does walking into work cause it for you? Does figuring out what you're going to eat for lunch? Does having to make cold calls? Does the work itself that you have to do in your job, your side hustle, your passion project, the book you need to write, does that create worry and anxiety for you? Does heading home from work create? Does being in the school pickup line and being worried about what your kid, like there are so many moments in your day. A humongous trigger for people is 5 o'clock at night. 5 o'clock at night when the lights start to get dark, major trigger. And the reason why is many of you grew up in households where there was abuse, you witnessed abuse, you had a parent that was an alcoholic, you had all kinds of tension in your house. And at 5 o'clock, what happens is the light starts to change and people start to come home. People start to drink. And that can be a major, major trigger for people. Major, because your body remembers what it was like to be a kid in a household when an alcoholic parent came home. And so your nervous system, believe it or not, is triggered by the time of day and the light changing and the fact that maybe you're with somebody or you live with somebody that comes home and has a drink. And that gets your mind to go. And so today, all I want you to do is I want you to identify the triggers. And here's why. When we pull the triggers out of the dark, we can teach you how to put a plan in place to respond to them so that you're not triggered and going into autopilot and starting to worry and feel anxious and having no control or idea why. okay? And we got to break these all apart. Anxiety, if this is the first time you're thinking about it, anxiety is what happens when you are worrying about something in the future that makes you feel uncertain or makes you feel like you're going to lose control. That's it. Anxiety is when you start worrying about things in the future that make you feel uncertain or make you feel like you're about to lose control, and you start to get a stomach ache, or you start to feel tightness in your throat, or you start to shake your hands, or you start to have your heart race, or you start to have sweaty palms. Your body starts to get agitated because you're really busy worrying about the test tomorrow. You're really busy worrying about whether or not you're going to throw up. You're really busy worrying about that sleepover and whether or not it's going to go okay. You're really busy worrying about whether or not your friends are going to talk to you when you walk into school today. Or you're busy worrying that something might happen to your parents. Why did I give you those examples? There was a specific reason why. The top worries that kids 12 and under have are, number one, throwing up. Now, why would throwing up cause kids anxiety? Because as an adult, you've probably done it a bunch. And so you know, you throw up, it's over, it sucks, but that's it. There's no sense getting yourself worked up about it. But for kids, this is the number one thing that kids are afraid of, because it is an enormous loss of control when it happens. And it scares a lot of kids to have that happening to them because their brains aren't matured and they don't understand that it's just a moment. So they're not actually worried about the throwing up. They're having anxiety because they're thinking that it could happen at some point, and that makes their body feel weird. And then, of course, because their body feels weird, it makes them certain that it's coming. I mean, kids can actually, I have a son that actually made himself throw up because he got so worked up thinking that he might, that he caused himself to. This is a true story. Absolutely true story. So I have lived this. Being worried about you dying, major cause of worry for kids. They think about it. And if they think about it too much and they don't have a process and a plan around how to live with that very normal fear, it will turn into anxiety. The social pressures of being accepted, going to a sleepover and being worried about what's going to happen because you've never been to the house before. You don't really like dogs and they have one. Your friend's dad kind of scares you. What time are we going to go to bed? You see, there's a lot of uncertainty that we adults don't think about when it relates to sleepovers at new friends' houses that your kids are worrying about. And if they stay up here and they start worrying about all the uncertainty, it's going to cause their body to start to freak out. And then the whole thing starts to spiral. And next thing they don't want to go, or they get there and they're on edge and they need to come home. Again, we've had that situation in our family too, where the inability to tolerate the uncertainty of something that's supposed to be fun. When am I going to bed? What are we going to eat? Will I throw up while I'm there? Are they going to like me? What are their parents like? What TV are we going to watch? What time are you picking me up in the morning? All of those unanswered questions and the inability to tolerate the uncertainty of that triggers the anxiety in your kids. This is what's happening in their brains. The rejection of friends. You know, the group dynamics of kids, particularly in middle school, brutal. You couldn't pay me millions of dollars to go back to middle school at this point. But your kids are walking into it every day and they're worrying about whether or not they're being accepted, because every moment in school is a moment of uncertainty about whether or not you're going to get the answer right, whether or not people are going to laugh, whether or not you're wearing the right things. And so again, these are all the things that trigger your child to worry because they are racked with situations that cause uncertainty and that make our kids feel like they might lose control. Now, here's the major mistake that you and I make as parents. When our kids start to worry, or when our kids start to feel anxious, which is the agitation in their body, you know what you and I immediately do? We immediately try to fix it. We swoop right in and we start to either say, you're going to be okay, and we assure them, because we're trying to fix it, right? We're trying to make the worry go away. We say, oh, well, this is going to happen, and that's going to happen, and this is going to happen. And so we answer all their questions, and we start to put in all kinds of certainty for them. And that is the exact opposite thing that you and I should be doing. And it's not our fault. We've kind of been doing it forever, haven't we? I mean, we're always worried about our kids. And so we put up gates at the top of stairs so that they don't fall down. We've got child locks on caps so that they don't eat anything. We stopped buying the Tide Pods because we didn't want them to choke on it. Like, as parents, we're constantly anticipating things that could go wrong. We're putting in controls. And so it is natural for you and me to jump into fix-it mode. If you want to get your kid to move beyond the grip of anxiety, you have to understand how your behavior is contributing to the anxiety itself. See, one of the things that I believe about anxiety is the reason why we develop it and the reason why we keep it around is because it works. I mean, if your kid is anxious and they start freaking out, they don't have to go to school. So all of a sudden, that situation that they felt uncomfortable around, they've now gained control because the anxiety worked. You swooped in, you fixed it, you said, that's okay, you don't have to go. And the problem with doing this is that we might be managing the momentary breakdown, but we are not teaching our kids a critical skill in life, and that is the ability to tolerate not knowing and the ability in the face of not knowing to assure yourself that no matter what, you'll figure it out. That is one of the most critical things that you could teach your kids. The self-reliance, the resiliency, the courage, and the confidence to know that even though I feel a little nervous and even though I don't have all the answers, I can trust that I can figure it out. And so that's the kind of biggest picture, that I want you to switch your mind from thinking you got to fix this for your kids. And that's us buying into the anxiety. And realize that when anxiety is present, it means that your child, my child, can't cope with uncertainty. And now as a parent, it's my job to teach them how. Which brings me to what you're going to do. So it's a process to do this. And it's going to require you to change how you relate to their anxiety. Because if you're guilty of trying to fix it just like I am, you're going to have to change that. When your child starts feeling very anxious about something or getting worried about puking or worried about the test or worried, in my case, I'm dealing with this right now with our teenager who has a massive audition. Are we off? Are we over?
No, we're good.
Okay. I'm sorry. We're at our offices in a conference room we've reserved and people were gathering. My daughter has a massive audition this weekend. And she's starting to get nervous. And why shouldn't she? I mean, this is a really big deal. She should be excited, but she's about to do something huge. And so, of course, that's going to be natural. I can't buy into it. Because if I buy into it, I'm going to make it worse. Because I'm going to try to fix her nerves. I need to validate. This is advice number one. Always validate where your kid is. Always. I get that you're nervous. I get that you are feeling anxious about this. I get that your stomach hurts. I get that you are doing all kinds of X, Y, and Z, and you have a right to be. Hold on one second. Were we good?
Oh, yeah. I'm not sure if there's another.
Sorry, we might be getting kicked out of our conference room in case we'll keep mobilize. We'll mobilize. So number one, validate. You have to validate where they're at, because part of the problem is our normal reaction is to go into fix-it mode, which completely jumps over them feeling like that you don't even get the feelings that they're feeling. The second thing that we do is we go, calm down, I'll help you fix this. And saying calm down, that's the worst thing that you could possibly do. Because when you say calm down to a child that's worried or anxious, what you're actually saying is, your worries don't matter to me. Your worries are silly. Your worries aren't valid. And so the last thing that you should ever say is calm down, because it sends the exact opposite message of what you want. So number one, validate. Totally get that you're nervous. I know that this is important to you. Tell you what, we're going to work together to make a plan. That is the number one word you want to say. Plan, plan, plan. Because when it comes to anxiety, when it comes to worries about the future, think about this for a minute. They're getting triggered by the fact that things are uncertain. They're getting triggered by the fact that, in my case this weekend, my daughter doesn't know how her audition's going to go. Your child's getting triggered by the fact that they don't know how the test is going to go. And so what you want to do is teach your child that in moments of uncertainty, the solution is not to panic, it's to plan. And that's where your skills come in. So here's what you're going to do. What I want you to do today is I want you to sit down with your son or daughter, and I want you to go through and identify all the things that trigger them to start worrying. All of the things that trigger them to feel anxious about something. Is it a friend situation? Is it a tryout situation like my daughter has this weekend? Is it a fear of throwing up at school? What is the thing that your child is worrying about? And if they're just worried about school, break it down further. You guide them through the process of taking this big thing, which is uncertainty and not knowing, and breaking it down into what exactly are you concerned about. The next thing that you're going to do, once you identify the triggers and you get them to describe the situation that they're worrying about, is you're going to come up with a plan. This is critical, okay? So let me give you some examples of it. A plan might be, we used to do this with our son, Oakley. A plan might be, okay, you're nervous about this sleepover. You're nervous because you've never been to the house before. You're nervous because they have 5 or 6 dogs and you don't know what that's going to be like. You're nervous because you don't know what time they're going to go to bed. You're nervous because you don't know what you're going to have for dinner. And you're nervous about that because you're nervous that if it triggers something in your throat, you might throw up. And you're nervous that you're not going to be able to sleep through the middle of the night. You're nervous that if you wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning, you're not going to know what to do and you're going to get scared. Like, you will be shocked when you start to actually ask your kids questions. Okay, and what else? What else? Oh, yeah, okay, I totally get that. I get that that worries you. What else? Remember, you're going to ask them, validate. Ask them, validate. Now that you have all the things that they're worried about, come up with a plan. This is called A-B planning. When you come up with a A-B plan, you are, based on the research, 67% more likely to be successful with your plan. And one of the cool things about kids and anxiety is that when you have pre-planned what they're going to do in the event one of these things that they're worried about happens, since you've pre-planned what they're going to do, guess what you've removed? The uncertainty. It works like magic. Okay, great. So you're worried about dinner. What do you think we could do in order to remove the worry? Oh, I don't know. Well, do you think you could text your friend and ask them what they're having for dinner? Is there something you're concerned that they're serving? Because if you're concerned that they're serving something, we can pack you something to eat if you don't like it. Is that a plan that makes you feel better? Yep, it sure does. What are you going to do at 2 o'clock in the morning if you wake up and you want to come home? I'll tell you what, you're going to call me. Well, why does that worry you? Well, I'm worried you won't hear it. Okay, well, let me show you. What kind of plan can we come up with that will give you control over a situation that you're worried about? Oh, you're going to leave your phone in your bedroom. I'm turning on the ringer, so I trust that it's going to happen. Dad's phone is going to be on. These are all planning tools that remove uncertainty. And it's also super valuable because you are teaching your child the critical skill of learning how to tolerate something that you're uncertain about, to not get triggered, and instead to make a plan so that you can live with the uncertainty and you can create control in ways that is healthy instead of having a panic attack, which makes everybody else around you try to control what's happening. Do you see how this works? I mean, it's going to take planning on your part, and it's going to take you and parenting in a different way. And, you know, look, I've been doing this with my own anxiety for more than 2 decades. I have 2 kids in particular that have pretty consistent issues related to anxiety. And just like Mindset Reset, it's not an event, it's a process. And the things that tripped up my son and made him anxious and worried when he was 9, we've now used what I'm telling you. I've validated it, we've gone through, we've broken things down, we've made a plan, we've even practiced the plan. He used to be terrified of getting on elevators, so we came up with a plan for what would happen if we were ever in one that broke down, and we practiced the plan. And we got on elevators together. And we even went and talked to somebody at the fire department about what happens when elevators, I mean, you can dismantle anxiety through the process of validating the worry, identifying what triggers the uncertainty, and making a plan and practicing it. And in fact, it's really the only way that works. And so the cool thing is that you're teaching your kids a skill that they can apply to anything. Oakley's anxiety has basically all but disappeared. And my daughter Kendall's anxiety only comes up when there are very acute situations of high stakes, like the one that we're facing right now. So in just a second, I'm going to take some questions from you, but I want to jump in and talk a little bit about how you tweak this for teens, because your teens are probably not going to sit down with you and go through their day and unpack everything that makes them anxious. If they do, that's fantastic, and you should use the exact same process that I just outlined for younger kids. But if your teens are full-on anxiety-ridden, most of it is triggered by social stuff with their friends. Most of it is triggered by the dynamic that you and I don't even understand that has become so much more consuming, because a couple things about teenagers that I want you to understand that are going on at the same time. Number one, you have to understand that teenagers are, what's a good word for a human being in progress? So it's sort of like a half-built house. You know what I'm saying? They're like a house that's been framed, okay? And we've got the Tyvek up, but we have not finished it yet. Your kids' brains are under development, so their ability to do complex processing or to make strategic, measured decisions, not developed yet. Boys in particular, their brain structure is very different than girls. They are more likely to take stupid risks. They're more likely not to think about the long-term consequences. Both boys and girls are having hormones rage through their systems, which also impact their ability to process things in a way that is rational at times. And then on top of it, throw in these two facts about human behavior. When you are a teenager, you go through a period in your biological development of needing to separate from your parents and to become your own independent person. It is hardwired into the DNA of every human being to go off on your own and define yourself as an individual at this stage in your life. And so if you've noticed an increase in conflict, if you've noticed that your kids push back on you, if you've noticed that your kids are asserting their independence and doing it in ways that are stupid or irrational or annoying, that is just part of the biological process of going from a framed house to figuring out how to furnish the thing and finish it off inside. They are mandated by their DNA to now start to push away from you and to become self-defined instead of defined by their family unit. At the same time, when you're a teenager, the number one important thing to you in terms of social structure is your friends. Your family is no longer the source of safety and stability for you. For most teenagers, they transfer that to their friends, and their friends become their primary group of influence, of importance, and of stability. And the reason why I'm saying that is because you may have an absolutely extraordinary relationship with your kids. I'd like to think that Chris and I do. That does not change the fact that their social standing with their friends right now are way more psychologically impactful than their relationship with you. And since you and I are not in the middle of their social interactions, and also since your teenagers have a phone 24/7, so they don't ever have a break from that social interaction unless you make the break happen, the rise of worry about how you fit in and whether or not that last text bothered somebody and whether or not, this person's mad at you or whether or not you did the right thing or whether or not this person's, it is, I don't even know how to describe it because we didn't grow up this way. The pressure and the worry and the uncertainty and the desire and need to always feel like you're on and available and participating because of the DNA human behavior fact that your friend group is more important than anything right now. It defines who you are. That, in my opinion, has contributed dramatically to the rise in anxiety that we're seeing in teenagers because there's so much uncertainty. Every text you send, most kids are worried about how people are going to read it and whether or not people are going to think it's this or how many likes if you have. It's gotten crazy out of control. So what does that mean? What does that mean? That means that with teenagers in particular, it is essential that you do whatever you can to not get triggered by their anxiety, by their rage, by their irrational worries, by their pushing back. You know, there's a difference between getting triggered and drawing boundaries between destructive, unsafe, and disrespectful behavior. You can still draw boundaries between their behavior that's destructive, disrespectful, and dangerous, and you should, and you must. But from the day-to-day pushing back, the not sharing, the anxiety, the blowing up about things, this is a time in your life where you got to have a lot of room for that. I'm going to be talking to you about the connection between worrying and anxiety and how it is critical if you want to quiet your anxiety, if you want to stop worrying, if you want to get control over what you're thinking about. It's going to begin with a habit that you have that somebody else trained you, that you've gotten really good at this habit. And you know what the habit is? It's the habit of worrying. We all do it. We're all guilty of it. We're all guilty of, sorry, let me just move that a little bit. We're all guilty of worrying about things that are beyond our control, worrying about things that doesn't matter, worrying about things that we shouldn't care about. Sorry, I've got the streaming lights anymore. Hold on, let me just ask Mandy a question. Worrying about all kinds of things that you shouldn't worry about. And it becomes a habit. It becomes a default way of thinking. And so in order to kick off Anxiety Week, I want to explain the connection between worrying and why that impacts anxiety. And now, since we're talking about anxiety, I have to be very clear about something, okay? I am not a therapist. I am an individual who struggled personally with anxiety for more than 2 decades. I took Zoloft, which was a lifesaver, and I strongly believe in trying medication when a professional believes that you are so in a hole mentally that medication will give you the ability to start to claw your way out of that hole. I have learned so much about anxiety because of my own struggles, and 5 years ago, I trained myself to be a deliberate thinker, just like I'm training you to be a deliberate thinker in this program. And through everything that I am about to teach you, and all of the strategies that you're about to learn, I learned all of these by researching anxiety. And I road tested them on myself while I was still in therapy. And I then started going off of my medication. And as my mindset reset and as my thinking patterns became more positive and stronger and healthier, I was able to completely cure myself of anxiety. And I say that with the utmost of relief and confidence. And I have also gone on to use these exact same techniques that I'm going to teach you to help my children deal with their anxieties. I've written extensively about anxiety in the 5-Second Rule book, which is right behind me. We've sold almost 1 million copies of that book. It is the #1 self-published audiobook in the history of Audible. I'm so proud of it. And I speak at length about anxiety and using the 5-Second Rule to cure yourself of anxiety, okay? But I need to make it very clear that these training sessions are in no way, a substitute for getting professional help. If you have the kind of clinical anxiety or you suffer from an anxiety disorder, it is paramount that you seek professional help from a therapist one-on-one, that you try remarkable therapies. I'm going to say it wrong, but it's EDRM or ERDM, which is the rapid eye movement therapy, incredibly helpful. And so don't be a hero. Don't go off your meds cold. Don't quit therapy because you think that this live training program is the answer. This live training program is a step. And this live training program for the next week in particular, while we talk about anxiety, you're going to be introduced to tools that are grounded in research and tools that have worked for millions of people and tools that you can take back to your therapist or take back to whatever counseling you get to help you become a deliberate thinker, which will help you quiet your anxiety, get control of it, and then ultimately cure it with the help of a professional if you have an anxiety disorder. So that said, please, please, please listen to everything that I'm about to tell you and try it, okay? Please try it because this stuff works if you practice it. And again, quieting anxiety, it's not an event. It's not a one and done. This is a process that you are going to repeat over and over and over again because the connection between anxiety and your mindset begins with your habit of worrying. We have a question from Twitter. Is worrying the same as overthinking? If you're overthinking about positive stuff and keeping yourself in an excited state, no, it's not. If you're overthinking and the overthinking is you spinning scenarios in your mind that are negative, yes. Overthinking is another word when it's negative for worrying on overdrive. It means that you worry in loops. And you keep repeating the worry over and over and over as if you were washing the same load of laundry over and over and over again. And so we're starting with the habit of worrying about things that don't matter, worrying about things that you can't control, worrying about things that haven't happened yet, worrying about things that are far off in the future. When you start to train yourself to think about things that are not in your control, or think about things that are statistically likely never to happen, that is when you can get into trouble. And that's why we're going to start with worrying. You see, worrying is when you allow your mind to default on autopilot and think about things that don't serve you. Think about things that are outside of your control. I'm going to give you an example that's very recent in my life. So I don't know, there were a bunch of you that noticed in the live streams that were on January 6th and January 7th, and I think January 5th. Many of you noticed that I had a lot of discoloration on my neck and I had what appeared to be a lump. And my own dermatologist pointed it out to me that I had a lump that was kind of like right here. Now, the second that somebody says lump, what are your thoughts default to automatically? The second somebody says you got a lump on your neck, cancer, of course. I've got some sort of disease that's going to kill me. And so what do I do when my thoughts go there? Well, then I start touching it and I start poking at it and I start pinching at it. And then I start asking everybody, do you see this lump on my neck? And asking people if they see a lump, that's a proactive action. That's a good idea. But the bad thing to do is to let your thoughts then default to thinking that you have cancer, to thinking that there's something wrong, to thinking that you're going to die, to thinking that this is going to be a major problem, to thinking that there's an emergency right now. And the problem with allowing your thoughts to go that way is because when you start to think about things, first of all, it's outside of my control if this is cancer or not. It's outside of my control right now if this is going to kill me. It's outside of my control right now whether or not a week from now when I go see my doctor, they're going to diagnose what is in my neck. Full disclosure, I saw my doctor. There's nothing wrong with me, okay? So if you allow your thoughts to constantly drift to the worst case scenario, what's going to happen as your thoughts spiral is your body is going to pick up on the fact that your thoughts are negative. Your body's going to pick up on the fact that your brain is worried. And what's going to happen if you allow your thoughts to spiral the way that mine started to about this silly little lump on my neck is that you will start to trigger agitation in your body. So when you start thinking negative things up here, you're going to start feeling negative things in here. You might feel a pit in your stomach. You might actually start to sweat. Your heart might start to race. Your throat might get tight. Your hands might get clammy. These are all telltale signs that you have now crossed from simply worrying in your mind to feeling physical agitation, which is anxiety. So that's the relationship between worrying about something, which is thinking negative thoughts about things that are outside your control, and anxiety, which is when those worries become physical agitation in your body caused by your thoughts. That's it. And so it's critical for you, if you have anxiety, if your kids have anxiety, if you're a chronic worrier, if you lay awake at night thinking about all these things that you need to do, we're going to go through all of this and all kinds of things that you can do to start to address this. It is critical that you understand that there is a connection between the day-to-day anxiety that many of you feel. We're not talking about anxiety disorders here. We're talking about the day-to-day anxiety that you feel that is triggered by the worries in your own head, that is triggered by the overwhelm that you feel in your life. This is anxiety that you can quiet. This is anxiety that you can get control of, because this form of anxiety is all triggered by your habit of worrying about things beyond your control. Worrying about whether or not your boss is going to snap at you. Worrying about whether or not your spouse is going to be in a bad mood when you walk in. Worrying about things that you can't necessarily control. And so here's the thing that you want to do. When you have a worry, for example, being worried about a lump in your neck is a good thing, because it'll get you to take action. So the second that I confirmed and I looked at the screenshots that many of you sent me and I checked it out in the mirror, that I had a little something right here, I made an appointment with my doctor. And then you know what I did for the rest of the week? I practiced the tools that we've already covered in videos 1 through 11. I practiced the tools of autopilot versus deliberate thinking. You see, you worry when you're on autopilot. When you direct your thoughts and you're deliberate, you're now in control of what you're doing. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, go to Mindset Reset, the playlist on YouTube, on our YouTube channel. And on video number 2 is all about autopilot versus deliberate thinking. So I would catch myself when I'd start to think about the lump. And I would go, nope, I'm not going to worry about that because I can't control it. I'll find out on my doctor's appointment if there's anything that I need to be concerned about. Until then, I'm going to not think about that. I'm going to think about this. And so day 4, when we talked about thinking this and not that, so this is video number 4, I used those tools all this week, everybody, in order to make sure that I didn't allow my habit of worrying about some lump on my neck turn into anxiety that I started to feel in my body. Does this make sense? Give me a thumbs up if this is making sense. And by directing my thoughts, so whenever I'd start to think, oh, there's that lump, and I'd start to touch it again, which of course makes it bigger, I would go, wait a minute, hold on, nope, I'm not going to think about this. I'm not going to worry about this. I'm going to be deliberate, and I'm going to think that I'm okay. And I started to train myself to go, I'm not going to worry about it until I have something to worry about. I'm going to make a doctor's appointment, and I will worry about it when there's something to worry about it. But for now, I'm just going to assume that it's totally fine, that there's nothing there, that maybe it's an insect bite or something like that that's gotten inflamed, and that's that. And you know what? It works. It works. And let's say that when I went to my doctor's appointment on Thursday, I got a bad diagnosis. Well, guess what? Then there are decisions to make. Then there are things to be concerned about. I still am going to have to manage my worries, because if I start to allow myself to get anxious about a negative situation, I'm going to make it worse for myself, okay? Your anxiety and your worrying doesn't change the things you need to do to address any problem in your life or potential problem. But worrying and causing yourself anxiety will make the potential problem worse because you are going to make yourself feel worse. So it all begins with you and being deliberate about what you will allow yourself to think about and what you will not allow yourself to think about.
How do you deal with the money anxiety that you may be feeling right now? And I have a quote to kick us off. We tend to forget that baby steps still move you forward. And so I'm going to talk about the baby steps. And they all fall inside the context of everything we do on Stay Connected with Mel Robbins. It's reminding you to stay safe and your family to stay safe, to have the proper perspective, to plan based on the facts, to be patient and resilient, and to look for the opportunities to grow. And so the first thing I want to give you when it comes to money anxiety is I want to give you the proper perspective. And I don't mean to be an alarmist. I am not a certified financial advisor. I am not somebody who even really understands the stock market all that well. I leave that to the experts. I am not a banker. I'm not an accountant. You should talk to people in your life if you have people in your life that either help you with financial advice or that you respect as it relates to financial decisions. But I want to give you a proper perspective, the perspective that I'm using, because I'm hoping that you will realize that this is an important moment for you to face your fears and for you to get very proactive. I read an article in The Atlantic yesterday that the stock market has lost 20% of its value in 21 days. And I want to put that in perspective for you so you understand what an unprecedented moment in time this is. That is more and greater of a loss than we experienced in the Great Depression in 1929. It's greater than what we experienced in the first dot-com crash in 1987, and it is 10 times the loss that was experienced in 2007. This is unprecedented. And it's important for you to realize that, because this is not just a moment where you can kind of ignore what's going on. It's a moment where you have to have the proper perspective that, yes, we're going to get through this. But when we get through this and we come out of self-isolation, it's not going to be just stepping back into the same old world. When you think about the impact to some of the industries that are the backbone of this country, whether you're talking about the airline industry or you're talking about the hotel industry and the devastation to those businesses, it's going to take time for things to get back to normal. It's going to take time for people who've had their life savings blown in the stock market crash to start to feel comfortable spending money again. It's going to take time for businesses who have had to furlough or shut down and who have experienced as major losses in terms of the amount of revenue coming in, that there is kind of a domino effect to all of this, which is why I'm sounding the alarm today, not in a hysterical way, but to say there's an opportunity here for you to lessen your money anxiety by not paying attention to everything going on out there, but by turning inward and paying attention to what you need to do to make sure you are safe and you are in control of your financial life. And look, I need to say something loud and clear. This is a collective issue. And if you're scared right now, if you've lost your job, if you're worried about running out of money, you're not alone. 58% of Americans have less than $1,000 in savings. 58%. So if you're worried about money, if you don't have the savings to see yourself through the end of the summer, you're not alone. You're in the majority, which is why I want to talk about this. In 2007, when we had that huge recession in the United States because the real estate market bottomed out because of all of the fraudulent loan activities of all the big banks, and we hit that major recession, therapists coined a term that they called money anxiety disorder. They saw people who had very destructive attachment issues and behavior issues related to money during that recession. And there were three things that they saw. And I want you to pause for a minute and ask yourself, are you seeing this in yourself or people that you love? Number one, you start hoarding money, right? You like hold on to it so much and you're terrified to spend it. Number two, you become so frugal with what you're doing. Or number three, and this is kind of as weird as it sounds, I think this one's probably the most common. You're overspending. You're sort of in this denial that there's a big problem coming and you spend in order to distract yourself. I did. See the sweatshirt I bought? I love it. But when we went into self-isolation, the first website I went to, Nordstrom's. And what I found to be really weird, because normally I kind of shop out of boredom and I'm one of those people that put things in a cart, but I don't necessarily buy it. One of the things that I saw on the Nordstrom site as I was purchasing this sweatshirt is there were more people looking at the item at the same time than I had ever seen before in my entire life. Nordstrom has this little thing where if you're looking at an item, it says 73 other people viewing it. I had never in my life seen numbers that high. And overspending is a sign that you are anxious about money. Hoarding money, a sign that you're anxious about money. And here's one of the things that we noticed doing the Mel Robbins show. Is that when you get nervous about money, it is incredibly common to stop opening your bills. It's incredibly common to go into a mode where you feel paralyzed by it and overwhelmed by it instead of getting proactive, which is what we all need to do. And there's an even deeper psychological reason why money anxiety triggers you so deeply. It's because money is attached to your fundamental needs. Do you remember something called Maslow's hierarchy of needs in high school? It's this concept that you and I, that human beings, we have basically a triangle of needs. And on the bottom, the part here that I have highlighted in orange, these are your fundamental needs. This basically means if you don't have this shit covered, you're dead. And so when this stuff gets threatened, the fundamental needs, I'm going to explain what they are in just a second, you go into panic mode. Up a little higher, once you got your fundamental needs, you need water, you need sleep, you need shelter, you need oxygen, you need food, you need clothing. Once you have those things, you can then go to the needs of the heart, connection, love, community. And then once you got that handled, you can go up here to personal development, to your soul, to your creativity. The reason why money anxiety is at an all-time high is because money is tied to being able to buy food. Money is tied to being able to have shelter. Money is tied to you feeling psychologically safe. And since it's attached to your fundamental needs, it's going to make you feel even more anxious right now. When you walk into Costco and there's no diapers left, or you walk into the grocery store and there's no toilet paper left, or you start to see the bills coming in, which threatens your ability to pay for your shelter or pay your utilities, you're going to feel more anxiety right now. This is acute. And that's why I want to talk about what you need to do right now. Because if you don't start to take control of the money situation, your anxiety that's tied to your basic needs is going to start to go up, 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 up. And remember the analogy on the plane, if you're the pilot or if you're the steward, I need you to stay calm. I need you to be in control. I need you to know that we are going to land in Chicago and that this turbulence is not going to make the plane crash. But if you start to get completely wackadoodle in your stress about money, you could make your own life crash because you don't take the steps now to put the proper plan in place. And that's what we're going to talk about right now. Okay. We're going to talk about the 5 things I want you to do if you're worried about money. And everybody should be worried about money. Me personally, there are 2 things that Chris and I are doing right now, and they all relate to these 5 steps. The 2 things Chris and I are doing is today, Chris is pulling all of the facts together. What are our outstanding bills? How much money do we have in the bank? What do our savings accounts look like? I haven't even looked because I've been nervous to look based on the stock market. I'm succumbing to it. If you don't have savings, you're not alone. 58% of Americans don't have savings. So I don't, or have less than $1,000 in savings. So this isn't just for people that have savings account. Everybody needs to stop and accept the new normal. What does that mean? In my mind, the new normal means the end of this year. The new normal means that you want to stop and you want to assess if this is going to go on in terms of self-isolation for a couple months, which I think it probably will, and then we come out of it. It's going to take a little bit of time. So I need you to accept the new normal instead of being in denial, because if you don't deal with this today, 2 weeks from now, you're going to have a panic attack when you go to the grocery store because you're not going to have the money to buy the basic essentials that you need. So accept the new normal. You don't have to take my date. You could pick July 1. You could pick September 1. And by the way, I've got good news at the end of this, so stay with me. Number 2, I need you to face your fear and get the facts. This is the most important part. You ready? What does this mean? Face your fears and get the facts. We're all terrified that you're going to run out of money. We're all terrified that you're not going to make it through this pandemic. You are going to make it through it. We're going to make it through it together. I guarantee you we will. You can face the facts, face your fear right now and get the facts. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to pull 2 months of your bank statements, okay? I don't care if you have zero savings. I'm sure you have a checking account. I'm sure you have to work with a bank in order to manage your money. Pull 2 months of records from your bank online, print them out, and then go through them. And you're going to need 2 things. Get a highlighter and get a pen. Any single thing that is a negative coming out of your bank statement, highlight it. That's all I want you to do. And then I want you to start to make a list of all of the different places that you pay monthly to every single month. I realize I'm being very, very elementary here. When people get afraid, we got to go back to the basics. So print out 2 months of your bank statements, pull out a highlighter, highlight all of the deductions from your account. That's going to tell you where you're spending money, because I bet if you're anything like me, you have no fucking clue where your money is going half the time. You had no idea that you charge that many movies on Netflix. You didn't realize that you were still on auto pay for a gym that you haven't been to for 18 months. So highlight all of the things that are deductions and then make a list of all of those businesses, okay? Why? The reason why is now we're going to go from being paralyzed to proactive, okay? Now that you know what your monthly bills look like and you know how much money you have in the bank or not, now you need to go from being paralyzed to proactive. That's step number 3. This is what I'm going to call the toilet paper moment. Remember 3 weeks ago when people told you to get prepared? Remember that? I remember how many people were like, if I get corona, I get corona. It only hurts young people. They're never going to isolate here. Remember those days? Well, I need you to start to listen to the experts. And the experts say that this is going to last many months. And the experts say that the economic fallout from this is going to last quite a while. And the experts say, I don't give a shit what your uncle says on Facebook. Now is a time to listen to the experts. You got it? Good. So it's also a time to go from being paralyzed to proactive. Now that you've highlighted all the deductions and you have listed all the businesses, now it is time to pick up the phone and get proactive. So here's what I want you to do. Anything you don't need, get rid of. If there is a subscription to something that you don't need, get rid of it. If you don't watch cable anymore, get rid of, this is time to cut the cord. If you don't go to the gym, time to cut the cord. If you've got a office at a WeWork or somewhere, time to end the lease. It is time to face reality, everybody. You also need to get onto your smartphone and dig into iTunes or the App Store on your Samsung and figure out what apps are charging you that you didn't even realize. Where do you have in-app purchases that you didn't even realize? Is your kid's Xbox attached to your credit card? Now is the time to take control of this stuff, everybody. If you pay a mortgage, because the federal government has not taken nationwide action, which they freaking need to do, you have to go state by state. So go to your state government website, and there will be information there about state by state relief in terms of mortgages. If you are renting, call your landlord if you have lost your job or if you are furloughed or if you are worried, and be in communication. Do not go into hiding. If you're hiding, you're paralyzed. If you're in communication, you're being proactive. For local taxes, you got to go local. Local governments are the ones in charge of your taxes. A lot of colleges, if your kids are home, has started to offer refunds on a prorated basis for room and board, which isn't being used right now. You need to pick up the phone. You need to start sending emails, and you need to get in front of this. Why? Well, because we tend to forget. Let's go to the quote. We tend to forget that baby steps still move you forward. And just like a daily routine gives you predictability, being in action, even if your landlord is a dickhead, even if you don't get the result you want, you are taking proactive steps. And that's what I need you to do.
In a lot of the stories, there's like the common thread where we hear about your husband and that relationship. And I feel like so much of our community are women that are very growth focused, and they oftentimes struggle with anxiety, but they really struggle with like this burning desire to want more from life. And sometimes it does transmute into like a focus or an anger on their relationship. So for your relationship and your marriage, like what has that trajectory been like, and how have you healed that? So now it's in support of your dreams, but rather than like being a place where you're projecting.
Yeah, it's a fabulous question. So in context, I've been married for 25 years. We literally celebrated our 25th wedding anniversary like 3 weeks ago. And it's been up and down. Mm-hmm. And one of the gifts of my marriage is that Chris and I have found ourselves at different times in very different roles in our marriage. And so we have been at times where we were without kids and we were both working and we were making about the same amount of money. And then we got into a mode where we had kids, and our kids are now 22, 21, and 16 years old, where he was the lead. Mm-hmm. And I was sort of the more traditional, I have a job, but your money's our money, my money's my play money kind of situation. And then we got into a point, which was 12 years ago, where my husband wanted to pursue a dream of going into the restaurant business. It had always been his dream. Now, look, I grew up working in restaurants, and I think one thing that will cure you of wanting to own one is working in
Yeah, that's true. That's so true.
So I'm like, okay, let's see how this goes. And he and his best friend, to their credit, they wrote a business plan. They raised a little bit of money. They quit their corporate jobs. They opened a little pizza joint outside of Boston, Massachusetts. The first one was a home run. And so like complete fucking idiots, we cashed everything out. 401ks, the 529 plans for the kids. We then took out a home equity line because that's free money. We leveraged credit cards. We shoved it all in to expand the restaurant business. And then 2008 hit. Wow. The housing crisis hit the United States. We found ourselves like everybody else upside down. The liens hit the house, $800,000 in debt, maxed out home equity line, maxed out credit cards. I never, ever thought that at the age of 41, with 3 kids under the age of 10, I would not be able to buy groceries. Mm-hmm. Friends and family had invested, and the restaurants were still open, and they were doing everything that they could to try to make it work. And I didn't want anybody to know. And this was absolutely the rock bottom moment of my life. I was drinking myself into the ground. I would wake up every single morning. I became a person I didn't recognize. Mm-hmm. I would literally hit that snooze button 4 times because I could not face the day. My kids would miss the bus every morning. I was that harried mom that was racing to school, kind of throwing them out of the car, forgot the lunches, forgot the forms. That was the beginning of the day. Hiding from my friends, pissed off at my husband. I would start drinking at, 3 o'clock in the afternoon to numb it all. I was unemployed. It was a fucking nightmare. And my problems felt so big that I just started circling the drain. Like, why bother? Like, I know how this ends. We lose the house. We get divorced. I hate you. It's your fault. Because the truth is, it's so much easier to be angry than it is to be afraid. And so here's the thing that I want to really focus on. You know what to do. We all do. Knowing what to do is the easy part. I knew it wasn't Chris's fault. It's not like he started the business to fail. I know the restaurant business is a bitch and most restaurants fail. I knew I needed a job. I knew I needed to talk to my friends. I knew I needed to stop drinking. I knew I needed to be nicer to him and stop. I knew I needed to exercise. Like, we all know what to do. It's the how. How do you make yourself do it when you feel scared or anxious or alone or beaten down or shame, like all of it? That was my struggle every day. And, I got out of that mess by sheer luck. And I think it was divine intervention because the story is so stupid. There's no other explanation. Literally, I was watching television one night. It was a Monday night outside of Boston, Massachusetts. And I was having a moment where I was having a pep talk with myself. I don't know if you've ever been that low where you're like, all right, that's it. Tomorrow morning, it's the new you, Mel Robbins. You've got to pull this shit together. You have got to look for a job. You've got to stop screaming at Chris. If you're going to drink, start at 8 o'clock. Don't start at 3. Like literally.
You're like drunk.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I'm like, oh, totally.
Totally.
I have 4 Manhattans in it this morning.
Like, no, we got this.
I got this.
Yeah.
I got this woman. And then tomorrow morning,
No, literally, like tomorrow.
you are going to get your ass out of bed. You're not going to hit that snooze button.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, honest to goodness, this is what happened. A rocket ship launches across the television screen at the end of the commercial. And those 4 Manhattans gave me a crazy ass idea. I said, Mel, tomorrow morning, you are going to launch yourself out of bed like a rocket. You are going to move so fast, woman. You're not going to be in that bed when that anxiety hits. You are going to be on your way. Now, that was it. That was the moment. I always say you're one decision away from a totally different life. One decision away. The next morning, Tuesday morning, this is when everything changed. The alarm goes off. And then this is something I want everyone to understand. There's a 5-second window of hesitation where you start to think about what you need to do. And this 5-second window of hesitation defines your whole life. It determines how much money you make, how happy you are, how healthy you are, whether or not your relationship is amazing. It's a moment of hesitation that's a habit, where you start thinking about what you need to do. And I am here to give you the secret to all behavior change. If you move within that 5-second moment of hesitation, you beat your subconscious brain and you take control. And I didn't know this at the time. I mean, come on. I had invented this while I was drunk on Manhattans. I now know the science. But here's how it works. So that alarm went off, and this is how I would test this. Set your alarm 30 minutes earlier tomorrow morning, and do it 30 minutes earlier on purpose. Because when that alarm goes off, you're going to be pissed off and full of resistance. Just like when you stand in front of the mirror and you're about to high five yourself, you're going to feel resistance. The resistance to getting out of bed is the exact same resistance that you feel standing in front of the mirror. It's the exact same resistance you feel when you are speaking up at work, or when you're drawing a boundary, or when you're putting down the donut, or where you're pushing yourself away from your computer to go meditate. Resistance anywhere is the same as resistance everywhere. So if you can learn how to beat it in one area of your life, you can do it everywhere. So the alarm goes off. And you'll notice in that moment when an alarm goes off, this moment of hesitation starts where you consider whether or not you feel like getting out of bed. And for me, I'd start thinking, I don't want to. I don't give a shit that I thought. Like, how's this going to help? It's cold. It's February. I don't want to. All you do in that moment when you feel the resistance kick in is count backwards, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That's it. Do not count up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It doesn't work. You have to count backwards, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Because when you start counting backwards, it requires focus. That shuts off the subconscious brain and awakens your prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain you use when you take the SATs, when you're present, when you're acting with confidence and courage. It gives you immediate control. By the time you get to 1, you now have a fucking shot. Move. Move. That's how you change behavior. In habit research, it's called a starting ritual. It's a little brain hack. It's a form of metacognition that you can use as a tool to push yourself to do the things that scare you or that you're avoiding. Or 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, pull yourself away from the rosé if you're trying to do Whole30. Pull yourself away, or 75 hard, which I, for some fucking reason, signed up for. I'm
What
on
is
day
that?
7, which is why I'm so angry with it.
I know.
I'll tell you that in a minute.
Okay.
But here's the thing about the 5-second rule. I didn't know it then. But I went on to use it in secret for 3 years. I then was invited to give a talk where I blurted out at the end of the talk because I have no idea how to end the talk. That talk that I'm talking about is a TEDx talk that now has 27 million views. If you watch it, you'll see me have a 21-minute long panic attack on the stage at the end of it was the first speech I'd ever given.
Wow.
I forget how to end it. It was about career change. It was not about the 5-second rule. I blurt out, oh, by the way, there's this thing I do. I call it the 5-second rule. You got to move within 5 seconds or your brain kills it. Thank you very much. I was so disassociated. The anxiety was so bad. I've got this massive neck rash. And I even give out my email address. Like, that's how out of it.
I'm obsessed with that.
Haven't cleaned up the inbox yet.
Yeah, no, still. And literally a year goes by.
You gave out your email address.
And nothing happens. And then they put it online. And then another year goes by. I don't even know it's online. And it gains 1 million views and people start to write to me. And I'm like, oh, were you in San Francisco? And they're like, no, it's online. I'm like, it's online?
Wow.
That's how the 5-second rule got out, by mistake. So when I say this is like God, the universe, whatever you believe or don't believe in, is like, okay, this crazy woman is ballsy enough to stand on a stage and tell people if you count backwards from 5, it'll change your life, and actually mean it. And I do.
Mm-hmm.
Pediatricians around the world now use it to help kids interrupt the thoughts that cause anxiety. Veterans organizations are using it to help reframe programs associated with PTSD. We know of more than 111 people who have stopped an attempt at suicide by counting backwards and asking for help.
Mm-hmm.
This shit works. And I'm telling you that the obstacles that you're facing in your life are real. The shit that you've survived in your life, it's big and it's real. The trauma that you're still trying to heal is real. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and high-fiving yourself in the mirror will not change those things. It changes you. And that changes your ability to face those things, to take responsibility for what happens next, and to heal, and to go create a life that makes you happy.
Yeah, it's almost as if it suspends time for a moment. Even though you're counting and creating time, it's like it suspends the time so that you can be like, oh, I'm not that thought that I have, or I am not the trauma that I experienced. It really does create that very brief moment of just like, oh, like shining the light on it so it doesn't control you anymore.
And for people pleasing, like you were talking about, like you see somebody left you on red, or somebody's ghosting you, or you're like doing what we all do, rewriting the text, putting in an emoji to make sure that it's softened, and like, do they like me? You're like, okay, wait a minute, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. What the fuck am I doing? Like, honestly,
Sure.
don't manage somebody's reaction. Manage your truth. Manage the tone in which you say it. And that's it. Like, if I have to choose between being liked and respected, I will choose being respected all day long.
Yeah.
And the number one person that you want to have respect you is you. When you stop acting authentically, when you start editing yourself or couching yourself or silencing yourself, you are no longer respecting yourself. So it goes back to the secret to all relationships. Your relationship with yourself is the foundation for every relationship you have. When you start to treat yourself with the respect and the celebration and the acknowledgement and the support that you need and you deserve, everything in your life changes because you change. It starts with you.
That was so beautiful. That was powerful.
But when you start to play around with this 5-second window and you realize, hey, you don't necessarily choose the stuff that's going to happen to you in your life, but you can always choose how you respond to it, you will never be knocked off your values, no matter what happens. Just ask Kyle.
Not only has 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 helped me overcome an addiction to the snooze button, but it's also helped me to stay sober and away from substances, even in finding out that my grandma's cancer was back this weekend, where normally that would send me into a spiral to make some choices that were not in my best interest. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm able to stay strong for my family, keep my career going, and continue the good progress I've made after 3.5 years sober.
Amazing, right? So let's go back to you being selfish, okay? I want you to hold on to this idea of what do you want in your life? What are your dreams for you? And then I want you to bring it back to yourself. Think about that excuse that is stopping you, the one that you always reach for, like I was reaching for the snooze alarm. And I want you to think to yourself, what do you need to change? And it could be something good. Like I have this huge thing going on in my life right now. I have a brand new, you guys, I landed a daytime syndicated talk show. No kidding. September 16th, I hope you'll tune in 5 days a week. Watch out, Dr. Phil, because the Mel Robbins show is going to be airing nationwide. That's right. And when I think about all the changes I've made in the last 10 years, my God, I'm exhausted. And when I think about what it's going to take for me to be successful in this next stage of my life, right? That's right, I hear you. And to do 175 shows a year, and to be a lifeline for people every day, and what it's going to take for me and my habits. I got a lot I need to change. I need to be more deliberate about a lot of things. I got to be more present with my family when I'm around them. I got to make sure that I stay centered. And so I want you to think about, when you think about that next chapter that can start right now, what is it that you need to change for the good? That small little tweak. And I want you to hold on to that, because this is an easy question to answer. The real one is this one.
Let's suppose that you were able every night to dream any dream you wanted to dream. Finally, you would dream where you are now. You would dream the dream of living the life that you are actually living today.
There is only one sensible thing to do with this empty existence, and that is, fill it.
Live long and prosper.
This is an adventure!
Don't let fear rule your life.
I'm trying to make somebody to look up to.
The most important word in that sentence is will. Not will you or won't you change, but do you have the will to push yourself to change? When you're tired, when you're frustrated, when somebody said something just nasty or racist or sexist to you and it brought you down. Do you have the will to keep pushing forward? And the answer is, yep, you will, because you're going to have this puppy in your back pocket, okay? So let me explain how you use it. The next time you're in a situation where that alarm goes off, you kind of know what to do. You feel that little bit of confidence. You feel that hope. You feel that courage coming up. And then you feel that 5-second window of hesitation open up and those excuses roll in and you start to feel yourself shrinking. You start to feel yourself getting silent. You start to feel yourself backing away from that thing you know you need to do. You're going to pull out the 5-second rule and go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and step forward. Now, a couple things about that. If you are with a group of people, do not count out loud, because you will sound like a weirdo. I do not want you in a meeting going 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You're like, oh my God, what is happening over there? A couple other things. Don't count up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It doesn't work. The reason why 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 doesn't work is because you and I were taught to count up in whatever language we were taught to count it in since we were yay high. It's already a pattern that is stored right here that you can do on autopilot. You can do it without thinking. I want you to develop a new pattern when you go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and you activate this puppy right here. Let me show you what's actually happening in your brain when you use forms of metacognition. Now, metacognition is just a fancy word that means brain trick. That's all. You have the ability to outsmart your own mind. You have the ability to use simple tricks to be able to control which part of the brain that you're using. So this guy right here is a simulation of a functional MRI when people are using forms of metacognition. That red part right there, it's the interior part of your brain. It's where all your habits are. It's where your emotions are stored. It's where every pattern that you know, from driving a car to doubting yourself, to feeling anxious, to worrying about what other people think, those patterns that are sabotaging you, right there in the red part. The green part, that's your prefrontal cortex. That's going to make you more money. That's going to make you happier. That's going to allow you to develop new skills. That's what you're using when you're in control of what you're doing. So let's count out loud backwards together, and let's see what happens when you use this. Here we go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Excellent. For those of you that felt pressure right there, don't worry, I'm not a hypnotist. That's just evidence, and you're going to feel that from time to time, that you're actually shifting gears in terms of which part of the mind that you're using. You know, when you first start using this, I think it's really obvious how you use it. You use it to do very irritating things, okay? You're going to 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, push yourself to the gym. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, push yourself to talk about total life changes. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, push yourself to put down the drink. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, push yourself to lower your voice. And look, you're probably going to hate me at times. I'm cool with that if you're changing your life for the better. I don't mind if you hate me. And I want to say something else about changing your life for the better. Do you realize I have been using the 5-second rule for 10 years. I use it every single morning to get out of bed. I hate getting out of bed. I use it every day to exercise. I hate exercising. I want you to understand something. There are going to be things that you need to do to heal your family, to build your business, to make more money that you may never like. That's okay. You can still do it. So I don't want you to expect that you're ever going to love having to make a cold call. You may always hate it, but you can still do it. I think about it like loading the dishwasher. I hate doing that too, but I still do it. Now I want to show you, given that I think the physical stuff is obvious, I want to show you two really important things. First of all, I'm going to show you a bunch of 5-second habits. These are habits that I have, that I do every single morning and every single night, and it is the reason why I am so successful. And it is the reason why I can focus on what's important most of the time and not get caught up in the baloney, okay? And so most of you are going to hate these. I want you to try them anyway. And so these are my 5-second habits that I want you all to adopt. And I promise you, if you adopt these, play around with them, you will make more money. You will make more money in less time. You will feel less anxiety. You will be less distracted. And I promise you, you're going to hate every one of them. You ready? Here we go. So the first one is about your phone. I want to put something into perspective for you. We live in what I call the attention economy, okay? That means your attention is for sale. Whenever you're on Facebook, whenever you're on social media and you're just kind of wasting time scrolling, if you click on something, you just made somebody money. They just bought your attention. And so one of the things I want to shift your perspective about is it's become more important than ever that you realize that your phone is perhaps the most important tool in your business, right? You got that? For those of you that don't have enough time, the reason why you don't has to do with how much time you waste on this. And so, yeah, I know, I don't like what she's talking about. I don't like this at all. It's true. If you want to, I want you to wake up and realize how often you're really using this to further your business and your goals. Or when you're the one that's making other people money because you're spending all your time clicking on a bunch of crap that doesn't matter. All right? So, one of the number one rules that I have that I want you to adopt, and it takes 5 seconds, I don't want you to ever have your phone in your bedroom. What? What? How dare you? Excuse me? I do not want your phone in your bedroom, and there's a couple reasons why. Number one, you're addicted to it. Okay? Number two, this is sickening. You ready? 33% of you are checking email in the middle of the night. Look, I'm 50 years old. I get up at 2:13 every morning, and I got to go to the bathroom, and it's nice to have a flashlight, but if you got it, then you're going to look at it. This is sick. And most of you don't even realize that you're doing it, and then you wonder, I'm getting sleep. I can't sleep. You want to know the other thing that's sick? 87% of you check it before you brush your teeth. You want to know why you wake up anxious and out of control and you got no time and you're freaked out? It's because you look at this thing before you even get out of bed. I mean, think about it. You're sleeping. If it's next to you and the alarm goes off, what are you going to do? Oh my God. That's what's going on today in the news? Oh my God, what's happened? That person's on vacation again? I hate them. And you wake up and you're like totally freaked out and upset and now you don't know why you don't know. And that's why your day starts. Is it any wonder if that's how your day starts, why you don't have time? Why your mind is already out of your control? You have to put this out of your bedroom, and here's why. I don't trust you, and you shouldn't trust you either with it. Now, here's the second rule. So it's not in your bedroom, so the alarm goes off. I don't want you to hit the snooze button. Now, here's why. The reason why has to do with the way your brain works. Your productivity and your focus has nothing to do with when you get up. It has everything to do with how you get up. So if you and I, we sleep in sleep cycles. So you fall asleep, it takes, a little while, and then you drift into a sleep cycle, and a sleep cycle is about 75 to 90 minutes. And then you do another one, 75 to 90 minutes. And then you do another one, 75 to 90 minutes. And then your brain goes into a phase where it starts to thaw like a giant chicken, to come awake. And when the alarm goes off, great, get up, you're in the thaw zone. Your brain is ready to start the day. If you hit the snooze button, like I used to hit the snooze button, and then you drift back to sleep, what do you suppose your mind drifts into? Sleep cycle. How long do those take? 75 to 90 minutes. So when that alarm goes off 15 minutes later and you wake up, your brain is now trapped in a sleep cycle. Sleep researchers, psychologists, neurologists, they call it sleep inertia. If your brain is in a sleep cycle, it impairs your ability to process, to focus, to remember for 4 hours. So those of you that keep hitting the snooze button and then you spend the day going, oh my God, I didn't get enough sleep last night. Whoa, I feel so groggy. It has nothing to do with how much sleep you got. It has to do with the fact that you screwed yourself over. You basically put yourself back in a sleep cycle and then made yourself wake up, and now you're walking around like the Walking Dead for 4 hours. So no snooze button. Not because it's enjoyable, but because that's what your brain needs, and that's what your business needs, and that's what you need in order to focus. Now, what do I want you to do? I want you to do something called 30 before 7:30. That means take 30 minutes. If you can't find 30 minutes, take 5. What do you not see in this photo? Her phone. That's right. What are you doing during this time? So so the alarm went off, the phone wasn't there, so you didn't look at it. You had to get out of bed because you didn't hit the snooze button. You now find 5 to 30 minutes. I started calling this 30 before 7:30 because my first kid got on the bus at 7 o'clock, so that was the first 30 minutes that I could find in the day where things weren't crazy, you know what I'm saying? And so this is what mine looks like. No makeup, pajamas, and no phone. Now, what are you doing in those 5 to 30 minutes? You haven't looked at your phone yet, so you haven't let the craziness of the world into your mind. You have not been hijacked by the attention economy. You've woken up and your brain is ready to go. All I want you to do is I want you to just think about your day. Just think about your day. And here's something that I stole from the folks at Harvard Business School that has changed how I do my day. And that is, all I want you to do is figure out today, what is one thing that I want to work on and one way that I can make progress? That's it. So you're going to wake up, not have your phone. You're going to sit down with a cup of coffee or tea, a glass of water, or whatever. You're going to find 5 to 30 minutes before you turn on the TV or turn on the radio or look at the social media. And you're going to ask yourself, what's the one thing I want to work on today? And what's one little puny thing that I can do to inch that thing forward? Can I send an email? Can I watch a video? Can I go through my social media and unfollow people that trigger me? Can I, can I make a phone call? Can I read some of the latest training from Total Life Changes? Yeah, what can I do? What's one thing? That's all I want you to do every day, because if you just did one thing every day to inch this business forward for you, you would be shocked where you are a year from now. And I'm going to tell you, it begins and ends with you giving yourself the key time before the day starts. Don't your dreams deserve 30 lousy minutes? Doesn't your mental health deserve 30 lousy minutes? And you're not going to get it the rest of the day. You're just not. And so this has really changed my life. And so what do? The last thing I do at the end of the day, I charge my phone in the kitchen at night. That's what I do. That's what I do with our kids' phones too. They stay in the kitchen or in the closet somewhere away. That's the last thing I do so that when I go into my bedroom, it's not there. I'm not even tempted. Those are 5-second habits that will fundamentally change your mindset. It'll change your sense of control. It will give you the little momentum every morning, and every single one of you can 5 minutes in the morning. Every single one of you can charge the phone in the kitchen. And by the way, if you want to see a video where I explain this for free, I'm not selling you anything. We just get a lot of questions about this. You can just go to melrobbins.com/free gift. It's a video explaining the science of all of this in even greater depth. And that's my thank you to you for inviting me here. So if this makes you nervous, good. That's right, good. Because you know what? Nerves are normal. Nerves are important. If you're not doing something once a week that makes you nervous, you should be. Because it means you're not doing anything new, you know? This is part of changing. And so now that I've given you the 5-second rule, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, you know how to push yourself, you know how to coach yourself, you know how to beat all the excuses, you know how to close the gap between thinking and doing, you know how to close the gap between doubting yourself and acting with confidence, you know how to close the gap between fear stopping you and being a little courageous. Now I want to give you a couple really cool tricks around dealing with nerves. Because now that you're going to push yourself, you're going to find yourself in situations that make you nervous. Awesome. I want you nervous at least once a week. I want you out on the edge. I want you feeling like, oh my gosh, can I do this? Can I do this? Well, we're gonna push you to do it. And so it's a medical fact that there's no difference in your body medically when you're in a situation that makes you nervous and a situation that makes you excited. No difference. Like, think about it. In a moment where you're really excited, your stomach has butterflies, right? Same thing's true when you're nervous. In a moment when you're really excited, your armpits, they sweat like Niagara Falls, right? Same thing when you're nervous. Your heart races, your throat gets tight, your hands get clammy. Medical fact. There is no difference between a situation that makes you nervous. I mean, is she nervous? Or is she excited? Whatever you're thinking, you're right, by the way. Because the only thing that's different between a situation that's supposedly making you nervous and excited is what your brain is saying about it. So the folks at Harvard Medical School wondered, geez, I wonder, since it's a medical fact that your body is exactly the same when you're nervous as when you're excited, could we trick your brain into thinking you're excited in a moment when you're nervous? The answer is yes, you certainly can. So let me show you the really awesome little trick, because they tested this at Harvard Medical School, and it was fascinating. Every single student who was taught to do what I'm about to teach you before a standardized test performed better. Before a track meet, ran faster. Before a negotiation competition, did better. Here's the simple trick. The next time you're in a situation that makes you nervous, you're going to go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then you're going to go, I am so excited to fire this person. A bad joke? Okay, well, that situation makes me nervous. Makes me very nervous. I'm so excited to give this presentation. I'm so excited to give this sample out. I am so excited. And something crazy is going to happen. Your body is going to settle. And you are going to perform better even though you feel nervous. And you're going to be shocked, just like Chris was shocked. I used the 5-second rule before a presentation. I used nervous energy to be excited. It worked. Here's the reason why it works. If you're in a situation that makes you nervous and you allow your thoughts to spiral, your own thoughts make your body state worse. When your body state starts to get even more agitated, cortisol, a stress hormone, hits your brain. When cortisol hits your prefrontal cortex, guess what happens? You can't remember what you prepared. You can't process as quickly. So it's not that your preparation in talking to people about this business wasn't good. It's that you allowed your own nerves to release cortisol, and that stopped you from leveraging what you know. It's absolutely amazing. And you need to know this because you're now going to be in situations, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, that really, really, really make you nervous. And that's good. Now you know all you have to do is be like, I'm so excited, I'm so excited, I'm so excited. And you will be startled by how well it works. Now I want to build on that and talk about anxiety, okay? And if you have children that struggle with anxiety, first of all, you're not alone. And secondly, I want you to pay attention because the 5-second rule is a remarkable tool that you can use to help your children with anxiety. Now, we've seen a rise in anxiety with our own kids. I was speaking for a massive audience of pediatricians, and a pediatrician came up to me a couple weeks ago after a speech and said, I'm so glad you're talking about this because, you know, a couple years ago, Mel, we would have 3 or 4 appointments a week where parents would raise anxiety as like an issue. I have 5 or 6 appointments a day where it's the primary thing they're coming in with. And I'm sure if you've seen a rise in your own family and you're worried about it, you know, I want you to know that you're not alone. The other reason why I talk about this is because when I talk about anxiety, it's personal. You know, a lot of people will look at me, particularly on stage or in the videos we put out online, and they're like, oh, Mel, whatever. She was just born confident and annoying. Annoying for sure. Just ask my baby brother, Derek. Confident? No way. I think if you could be a baby that worries, that was me. I was the kind of kid that, like, my face would turn bright red when I got called on in class. And when I was in 6th grade, growing up in Western Michigan, my parents, they sent me to Girl Scout camp in Pentwater. I was so homesick, they sent me home. I mean, do you know how homesick you need to be for trained adults to be like, you need to leave? This is out of hand. By the time I was 19, it was panic attacks. By the time I was 21, it was full-blown anxiety disorder. And thank God a doctor put me on Zoloft. You know, I took that drug for 25 years. And I had no shame in that. I mean, it was a lifesaver for me. In fact, the only time I stopped taking it was when our now 20-year-old daughter was born. And I had such severe postpartum depression, like the really scary kind. I couldn't be left alone with our daughter for 8 weeks. So when I talk about how you and I torture ourselves with how we think. I have lived this nightmare. Now, about 5 years ago, as the 5-second rule started to spread around the world, and I was like overwhelmed with the stories coming in. Something happens to you when you put something out in the world and it helps people change their lives. I know you feel that in your own business as a life changer, right? Like you feel like so humbled, and you also feel a sense of responsibility, don't you? I felt a sense of responsibility to not only be able to explain why does something so simple work and help people, but I also felt a responsibility to take a look in the mirror and deal with my own demons. And so I thought, you know, I wonder if you could use the 5-second rule to do things other than physical habits. I wonder if you could change mental habits. I wonder if you could change your mindset. I wonder if I could cure myself of anxiety. And the answer is, yep, you sure can. In fact, I've been off meds for 5 years. I haven't had a panic attack, a bout of anxiety. I don't even worry about anything. So it's amazing. It is liberating. When you embrace the idea, everybody, I want to tell you something. I don't know who trained you to talk the way that you talk to yourself. I don't know who trained you to think you're not worthy, or you're not good enough, or you're not likable. You're not to blame for that. But you have a responsibility to change how you talk to yourself. And I'm going to show you how you do that using science. Are you ready? It's amazing. And I'm going to use an example that many of you may be able to relate to, and that's the fear of flying. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the research you just learned from Harvard Medical School about reframing nerves into excitement. Because remember, nerves and excitement, the same thing. And the danger of allowing yourself to stay worried is that you agitate your body further. Believe it or not, there's a really tight connection between worry and anxiety. Worry is your thoughts being negative. Anxiety is when your thoughts get so negative your body starts to get worried. Okay? That's like the little sister and the big sister. A panic attack is when your body becomes so agitated that it's like, oh my God, I think I'm going to die, and it takes over. It's like the mother, okay? So I'm going to use this example to break apart how we think and to show you how to use the I'm excited trick from Harvard Medical School along with something that we call an anchor thought that will anchor your thoughts down and retrain your brain. So the fear of flying. I used to be a real nervous flyer, meaning I was a real weirdo. I would get to the airport, like I'm going to go to the airport tonight for my flight at 6:30, and I would get to the gate, and I'd be looking around at the gate area, and I had this whole thing where I wanted to see 3 kinds of passengers, ladies and gentlemen. I want to see a baby. We got a baby. Yes. I want to see someone in a wheelchair. Awesome. And I'd like to see men and women in the service. Because if those folks are getting on my plane, I could say, all right, God's not going to let this plane go down if they're on it, so it's safe to board, you know what I mean? And then I would get to the seat, and I would click that buckle, and the nerves would kick in, and the stomach would be in knots, and the armpits would be sweating like Niagara Falls, my hands would get clammy, and start drinking water. And if you were next to me as I started my breathing, you would literally be like, why me? Why me next to this freak? And so I would try to keep it together as the plane is taxiing. And then the plane would take off, and as it takes off, it's like, okay, it's going up, it's going up. And then you know how the plane takes off and then it levels off and it goes from like to and it feels like it's about to fall out of the sky. At that point, all bets are off. I start having a panic attack. I've grabbed you. I'm hyperventilating. I pull out my phone and I text Chris and our 3 children, Mommy loves you. Heart emoji, heart emoji. Because if this plane is about to crash, I want my kids to know I tried to be the best mother that I could. And that way at my funeral, when they deliver my eulogy, they can put those text messages in the PowerPoint, you know, and they can show you. And you giggle because we're sick. We're sick human beings. If I were to put a speaker on your head and broadcast the garbage you say to yourself, you wouldn't be here with us in Dallas. You'd be in an institution. But you listen to it. You listen to it. You listen to it. Oh my God. Why do you listen to this? It's insane. You get an email from your boss, you're like, I'm fired. You know, you get an email from somebody in corporate, what did I do? You have to stop it. It is a habit. It's a pattern. That's all it is. And you can break it. And you can replace it. And if you use the 5-second rule for nothing else, please go to war against how you talk to yourself. It will not make you more money to keep saying this crap to yourself. You are worthy. You do deserve it. You are smart enough. You work hard. You are worthy of love. You are worthy of success. Period. End of story. Yes, you are. So here's how you do it. When I get on the plane, before I get on that plane, so before you go through your day, I know exactly what triggers me on the plane. It's when we hit turbulence. There's something about that metal tube bouncing around at 30,000 feet in the air that makes me a little nervous, you know what I mean? So I come up with an anchor thought. An anchor thought is any thought related to what you're about to do that excites you. So if you're nervous about sharing total life changes, come up with an anchor thought that makes you excited. Think about what you love about this stuff. Think about the fact that you're going to give people a gift. It's a free sample, for crying out loud. Think about the impact this has made on your life. That's your anchor thought. If you have kids that struggle with anxiety, go through their day and talk about everything that makes them nervous and help them come up with another thought that could make them excited about what's going to happen. So I always think, if I'm flying back to Boston, I always think about, okay, what am I excited to do when I get home? Well, I'm excited to walk in the front door because we have a crazy 14-year-old son that always has some kind of wacko greeting, and I love it. And so when I get on the plane tonight, and we fly back east, and we bounce around over the rainstorms that hit the plains today, and my mind goes, oh my God, oh my God. Ooh. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I am not thinking about that. I am interrupting that thought. I am yanking my thoughts forward to here, and I am dropping in an anchor thought. I am so excited to walk in the front door and see what he does tonight. Right? And so what happens? Nothing. It's amazing. What happens is I yank my thoughts to my prefrontal cortex, and because I'm now thinking about something that's related, my mind's like, oh, whoa, 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 whoa. She's not nervous about dying. She's excited to get home. That's it. So when you start to feel the butterflies coming, they're going to come. That's cool. You're stepping out of your comfort zone. I love that. Yay, you. Grow. Do it. Then go, I'm so excited to make a difference. I'm so excited to have a team of people. I am so excited to change my own life. I am so excited to give this gift and share this sample. I am so excited to have this conversation and remove the garbage that is between me and my dad or my mom or my spouse or my kid. And that anchor thought will anchor you down. And what's amazing, we had somebody write to us, you guys. I'm so proud of this. We had somebody write to us 2 weeks ago that follows us online, learned this by just watching some videos that we put out, and she said her 6-year-old was so overwhelmed with anxiety, she was getting physically ill before school, throwing up, that anxious, working herself into a tizzy. And she started using this simple formula I've just given to you. Go through your day. She's like, well, what are you worried about in the first period? What are you worried about in the second period? Okay, well, what can we think about that would be exciting? And what could you think about if you have to go to the nurse? And what could you... Do you know in 2 days, 2 days, using just the 5-second rule, I'm excited, and anchor thoughts, this little girl is no longer getting sick, and in fact was bounding out of the car going, I am so excited, so excited. This stuff works, but it doesn't work if you don't use it. So if you don't think you have anxiety, I think you're wrong. I think we all do. I love this email from Mohammed. Thank you, Mel. I had an important email to send, but I was afraid. How many of us have an email or a phone call, right? We're thinking about it. We're afraid. Why are we afraid? Because we're uncertain. That's all that triggers us. We're uncertain about how it's going to go. Do you know that thinking about it doesn't create certainty? The only thing that will give you certainty is you taking control in that 5-second window, changing how you think, and taking control of what you do in response. And I'm telling you, the secret is just 5 seconds. That's it. You don't have to worry about the big stuff. You've got to worry about these 5-second windows. You've got to worry about whether or not you got the clarity and the courage to hear the alarm and the power and the genius that is inside of you. And, you can get resigned. I was resigned. I didn't think, how on earth could simply getting my butt out of bed, how could that make a difference when our problems are so big? I'm telling you, you change your life one decision at a time. In fact, I think you're just one decision away from a totally different life. You're one decision away from not torturing yourself upstairs. It's the big stuff that you change with the littlest moments. Just ask Brittany and Todd. So today's Brittany's wedding day, and what you can't tell is it's been a terrible decade for the family because Brittany and Todd's mom got a divorce. And what are the rules of the divorce? Oh, you hate each other and you fight like cats and dogs. You hire lawyers and spend all your money and you lose everything. And finally the dust settles and the divorce is final. And then what happens? Oh, everybody remarries and it's like a big team sport of hate again. So, he's walking his new wife up the aisle and that alarm goes off. That alarm that's inside of you, that is trying to signal you to pay attention, that there's magic here, there's connection here, there's change here, there's power here. That alarm goes off and it says, dude, you got to do something to heal this family. He sets his new wife down, he makes a 5-second decision. There were a million reasons not to do what he did. But he turned around, he walked back, he grabbed this man. That's a man he hates. That's Brittany's stepdad. Just look at the lady next to them, for crying out loud, you guys. And invited him to walk their daughter down the aisle. One decision changes everything. Just ask his family.
Well, now there's like a mad rush of young people looking to see if you will adopt them, because that's my first thought. My second thought was, okay, so when my daughter has anxiety, or my son has anxiety, my daughter more so will struggle with anxiety, and she's pretty open about it. There's a part of me that wants to fix it, and there's a part of me that's like, how can you have anxiety when I'm your mom and we talk about these things and I pump you up and you have. You don't need to do anything to be amazing. And so she just gets this incredible pep talk. Like, most people would die that's like prose, basically, to read that and to be so encouraged. And so many people, not only do they not get that encouragement from their own parents, they don't get it from anyone.
Right.
So to think that she's getting that, and she's, her parents are together and she's had this incredible opportunity to have someone pour into her all of her life, yet she still struggles with anxiety.
Crippling.
And so as a parent, that's something I'm always wanting, I struggle with that. Is it something I've done? Is it the manic way that I live my life? Am I the person who's giving her, because I don't have anxiety, so am I giving her anxiety?
So I have no idea. Here's the most important thing. It doesn't matter what you think or what you're feeling. Mm-hmm. Because the anxiety is her felt experience.
That's right.
Right? And as parents, I think one of the most heartbreaking and frustrating things is that oftentimes you have somebody in your life that you love, a son, a daughter, a partner, and you see all the amazing things about them. And they don't see any of it. Mm-hmm. And so this is also one of the big things in the book that we write about how your own mind has a filter in it, this thing called the reticular activity system. And that the filter in your brain is very different than the filter in anybody else's brain. And it's constantly changing in real time based on what you think is important to it. So it's all chapters, I think 4 through 7, we go through all this and teach you how to change the filter. You've experienced this filter, by the way. Mm-hmm. So when you go to buy a new car, right now, everybody's seeing Broncos everywhere, right? The new Bronco is out.
Okay, now
there's one.
Now
right.
I will. I
Yes.
hadn't,
so
but now I will.
when's the last time you bought a car?
In December.
Okay. And what happened once you decided what kind of car you were going to
I
sell?
keep seeing that car everywhere.
Correct.
And when I see the same car in the same color, I try to run them off the road.
Yes. And so that's your brain changing the way it filters the world in real time because of what it thinks is important to you. So if I think, for example, that your daughter is beautiful, and your daughter thinks that she's the ugliest or the biggest of all her friends or whatever, it doesn't matter what I think.
Right.
It matters what she thinks. And when you tell yourself over and over that you're not good enough or you're a failure or you're this or you're that, your brain actually thinks it's important. I can give you an example. So my husband went into the restaurant business. It was a dream of his. And this is actually all part of the origin story of the 5-second rule. And he and his best friend launched these little pizza joints outside of Boston, Massachusetts. And it ends up not going great. And they work at it super, super hard for 7 years. And at the end of the business, they sold it for, pennies on the dollar to the next investor. They left the business and they did not return the profit that they had hoped to return to their investors. Now, our best friend, Chris's business partner, was able to leave that business and go, entrepreneurship. I'm proud of myself.
Sure.
We worked so hard. And yeah, did we do what we set out? No, but you know what? I feel good about what I did. My husband couldn't do that. He left that business and said, that failed. I'm a failure.
Oh.
And
was that his first big entrepreneurial?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And for 7 years, he would drag that into the bathroom every morning.
Oh.
And the human being he saw staring back at him in the mirror was a failure because of that thing. That's actually why most people have anxiety, or because because they resist the high five habit. Because they are dragging their entire past into the bathroom and saying, because of these things that have been done to me or these things that I did that I wish I could change, I now see a person who does not deserve a high five.
Yeah.
And so you withhold the thing that you need to forgive yourself, to love yourself.
The thing that you would give to anyone else.
That's also why people feel anxious.
Well, let's talk about that. Worry and anxiety,
Yes.
the difference between the two.
You got it.
Because I don't worry, and it's almost a problem. I feel, and I've talked about it before.
Why do you think you don't worry?
Well, I had my brain scanned, and Dr. Amen says I just don't have blood flow in that area. So part of it's genetic. Part of it is my faith.
Yep.
Part of it is the way I was raised. Like, you just roll with everything. So. Yeah. And my parents, I don't think were worriers, so I never learned the worry habit. I think that's part of it.
But then to your point, it's interesting. How did my daughter learn it? Right? If your daughter's struggling with it?
Yes.
I'm going to fan myself because I actually think I might be having a hot flash.
Oh, that's so fantastic, because that's another thing we talk a lot about is
you just let
the change.
Know. Who cares?
I haven't had any hot flashes yet.
What?
I shouldn't even.
How is that even
I probably
possible?
just jinxed myself.
Yes.
I don't know. My mom
right.
didn't have a lot of hot flashes either.
It happens more and more.
So I don't worry. I don't worry.
All right, so let me tell you the difference. So worrying is nothing more than worrying is always about the future, by the way. It's never about the present moment.
True.
And so worrying is when your thoughts start to sound an alarm about what's going to happen.
Okay.
So it's the what if this, what if that, what if the other thing, what if loop that you can get trapped into. Anxiety is when your body state changes.
So worry is all the things that are happening in your head.
Yeah.
Oh, and anxiety you feel.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
That helps me.
Yes.
Okay. So, and you're still having the thoughts too.
Correct.
Okay.
But a lot of times what will happen is that your body state can get so agitated that you even stop being present to what you're worried about, because now your mind goes, I feel like I'm going to throw up. I feel like my heart is racing. And you start to obsess over the physiology of your body. And I'm going to explain kind of even more about this.
Super helpful.
Panic is now the big brother of all of this. So worry's a little baby. Then we got the middle schooler, which is feeling it in your body. And then you got the big, teenager of a panic attack, which is when the body state gets so scared and upset that now your brain has an emergency system that says, we're going to get you out of here. So if you've ever been around somebody who panics, they're not rational.
No.
They're immediately like, I need to get out of the room.
I'm going to die.
I'm going to die. Like they go into a mode of get me out of here as a way to rescue themselves from a body that's now sounding a 5 alarm kind of fire. So there are 2 ways that anxiety can come on. this anxiety thing in your body. You can either start with your mind and all the what ifs. What if this happens? What if that happens? What if this happened? It can happen as you're scrolling through social media and you start to see that your friends all went out and they didn't invite you. Thanks a lot. Or you see the person that's, exercising and you start going, but I didn't exercise. And you start thinking, it's never going to work out for me. Or you see all the couples and then you start thinking, what if I never meet anybody? So it can start with the thoughts, right?
Yeah.
And then your body starts to go, uh-oh. And your stomach gets tense and your armpits sweat and your heart starts to race. And that's how it ramps up. Or if you have trauma stored in your body from anything in your childhood or anything in your past, there will be times that you feel a surge of anxiety come on and you don't know why.
So there is no precursor. There's no, you're saying for certain people or in certain situations, you might just be washing the dishes and suddenly you have anxiety come on.
Correct.
And so I want, and again, I'm asking these questions because I haven't felt it. Yeah.
If it's a trauma response, it's because your nervous system just remembered something from your past. So I'll give
like
you
subconsciously?
Yeah. I'll give you a really, really common example that we've found in all the research that we've done and the people that we've coached. A lot of people get very on edge as the sun goes down. And the reason why is because if you grew up in a chaotic or abusive household, that's when people were coming home from work.
Yeah.
That's when the drinking began.
Or you came home from school.
Correct. If you hear tires on a gravel road, if you hear a beer can crack open, if you smell a certain cologne, those can be things that set you on edge.
Sure.
And that's not even something you're consciously aware of. It's your body remembering something. And your body's now trying to help you by going, pay attention, this is that thing, But then you're standing there washing your dishes, you feel this thing happen, and you're like, why am I feeling nervous? Why is my stomach? And then your thoughts go. This is how it escalates. So
can I ask, somebody who feels anxiety all the time?
That's generalized anxiety, and that's what that's,
and is that a physical feeling that you feel all the time?
What that is there's an entire chapter around this book that'll change your life. I think it's chapter 7. It's called High Five in Your Heart. So when you're on edge all the time, let me teach you about your nervous system.
Yes.
Because I think everybody on the planet right now, having come out of the last 18 months, everybody is right now in a state of fight or flight. Everybody's nervous system is fried and on edge. Everybody is prone to being triggered because you have just gone through a level of sustained uncertainty that no human nervous system can manage.
Yeah.
So here's what everybody needs to know. You have 2 nervous systems, okay? You have something called the sympathetic nervous system, which is basically fight or flight.
Right.
This is your anxiety state. This is being on edge. This is feeling like the next shoe's going to drop. This is what psychologists call being dysregulated, okay? The second nervous system that you have is called the parasympathetic nervous system. And that is your calm, cool, grounded, resting nervous system. That's how we want you to go through your day.
Yeah.
Because when you are grounded in your body and you feel comfortable in your own skin, first of all, your prefrontal cortex can work. Secondly, you won't be as easily triggered. Third, you'll feel more optimistic and focused. And so I want to teach you a simple trick using science to switch off this on edge nervous system and switch on the really positive one. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to use something called the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is a treasure, as you know, in your body. And it runs from your rear end all the way up to the top of your head, through every organ, through your vocal cords. All you're going to do is take your hands, put them right here in the center of your chest. You're going to press down. You're going to take a deep breath. And then you're going to say these 3 sentences. I'm okay. I'm safe. I'm loved.
I'm okay. I'm safe. I'm loved.
Yeah. What did you feel when you did that?
I believe those things. I feel good.
Yeah.
I feel calmer.
Yeah.
So I suppose that brings you into that state?
Yes. And pressing here actually tones the vagus nerve, which is an on-off button between the on edge and the calm and cool. It's like a treasure. And so here's a couple things I want you to know. There are some mornings you might wake up and you need to do it 53 times. There are days you might stand in the grocery store and somebody cuts you off with their cart and it just sends you reeling. Hands on heart. Give your heart a high five. Pull yourself back into your body. Switch off that stress response. Switch on your grounded, calm, in control response.
Do you recommend people do that I mean, is there a
Every
way
morning.
to put the brake on if you're someone who can pretty easily slip into a panic attack?
Yes. So this is something you want to start to do immediately. And I recommend you do it right after you get out of bed, because I would like for you, before you get into the bathroom mirror, I would like for you to be present and on edge. And I would like for you to be grounded in your body when you start your day. It's an incredible gift that you can give yourself, because you'll feel more in control and centered and present. And then when you step in front of that mirror, you will actually be able to be with yourself and to understand, okay, what do I need from myself today?
Yeah.
And it completely changes that moment. The other reason why this is important is because if your nervous system is on edge, and that's your default, yes, you're going to be way more prone to a panic attack, because you are already idling at such a stressed out level, and all the chemical releases from the cortisol and everything else that's flooding your body. We need to get you back into a more neutral and grounded state. So that'll help for sure. And so it's important to understand, are my worries starting in my head, or are they actually a felt experience in my body? Because then, depending upon which or both it is, you can use two totally different strategies. First of all, this high-fiving your heart absolutely will work for trauma. It does not get rid of it. It helps you manage and live with it. I would recommend EMDR. I would also recommend...
We're big fans of EMDR.
Yeah, and the guided psychedelic modalities are incredible. I've done those for childhood trauma, and they've been unbelievable.
Amazing.
And so those sorts of things really help you heal trauma. This will help you control it, live with it, not be afraid of it, in terms of being able to settle your nervous system.
You've experienced anxiety all your life.
Yeah.
So I have a couple questions around that. Number one, controlling it, managing it. What are your thoughts and your experiences with medication, SSRIs?
Oh, great question. So I took Zoloft from the age of 22 until probably 44.
Okay.
It was life-changing.
Life-saving or life-changing, or both?
Both. It was the latter I needed to get out of a hole, because when I finally got diagnosed with anxiety, I have a very interesting story, because I fall into the group of women, and I know you do too, that were completely a part of what they call the lost generation.
Yeah.
So when they came out, as you know, with the ADHD and ADD diagnosis back in the 70s.
Just a boy thing.
Just a boy thing, yeah. And the symptoms for women present completely differently. And when you don't treat ADHD, you tend to get anxiety.
Yeah.
And so there's a huge group of women our age that were treated and medicated for anxiety in their late teens and early 20s, when the actual issue was ADD.
It's still happening today.
Oh, of course it is. Yes. It's actually one of these things I'm super passionate about getting out into the world.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't until I discovered the 5-second rule, and I started to do the part that you can do to interrupt the worry loop, which, when you can cut the anxiety off at its knees by cutting off the worry cycle, you stop the escalation in your body.
Okay.
And so I can teach you guys how to do that. It's super simple. It's
Let's do it.
super
Let's do
effective.
it. Yeah.
There's one other thing I want to teach you about anxiety, though, that also is incredibly empowering, because it makes so much sense. So anxiety has a purpose. Really important one, actually. Anxiety, and that anxiety response in your body, gets you to pay attention.
Yeah.
If you go into a state of being hyper alert before a test, you'll do better if you're not worried.
Absolutely.
Same with performance. Same with sports. Like, it's really, and also it alerts you to danger. So, for example, if you and I were driving after this interview to go get a cup of coffee, and somebody suddenly swerves in front of us.
Yes.
And we whip the car.
Yes.
What are you going to feel in your body?
Feels like butterflies. I'll shake.
Yep.
Sweat, maybe.
Yep.
A little bit of panic.
Yep.
And your muscles tense up.
Yep. Exactly. Exactly. So you just had a panic attack in the car.
Oh.
But the reason why it wasn't scary is because intellectually it made sense.
It made sense. Yeah, like, of course I almost died.
Yeah, the swerving was your brain taking over to get you out of there. That's a panic attack, basically.
Oh, interesting.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
In a way that's healthy.
Yeah.
And then when
serves us.
Yeah, when the car pulls away, what happens in your body?
You start to, like, it stays for a minute, you know, but then you start to go like, okay, I'm safe.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
What happens for people that struggle with anxiety is they have that response, and it doesn't make any sense because they don't understand it. So it escalates because they get afraid of it. And once you're afraid of anxiety coming on, then you actually make it last longer because you're resisting the up and down of it. And so there's two things that you can do. First, what I want you to do is I want you to write down, well, actually, first what you do is for a week, anytime you catch yourself time traveling ahead or worrying, use the 5-second rule and interrupt it. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and just say, I'm not thinking about that. You want to build a muscle of catching yourself hanging out in the worry loop.
Oh, catch yourself when you're hanging out there. Okay.
Yeah. You're thinking about your roommate situation this fall, and it's not even this fall yet. You're worried about what classes you're going to get. You're worried about whether or not you're going to lose the weight before the reunion. You're worried about whether or not anyone's going to hire you because you've been home staying. Like you're like sitting here just in the doom loop, right?
I do this with my daughter, and so I'm curious if you can give me some advice from someone who has it, because again, I don't know her experience, but we will get into this dialogue. We just did it last night. She's planning her wedding and she's launching a beauty brand. And so she was going through like all of the what ifs thoughts in her head. And she was like, I'm so anxious. And so I'm dismissing each one of her what ifs and what ifs. And I just keep dismissing it.
You wanna know why?
Then I'm like the toxic positivity mother, like, so you're not worried, okay? Good night. I'm going to bed, but you're not worried and you're not anxious.
Well, so when somebody who's anxious brings their problems to people, people are like, well, because here's the thing. I did this for years.
Okay.
And my kids' anxiety just escalated.
Okay.
So there are two mistakes all parents make.
I'm taking notes.
All parents make these two mistakes, including yours truly. I mean, I caused my kids years of therapy because of these mistakes. And myself, of course, for blaming myself for making these mistakes. Number one is invalidating the worry.
Okay.
We think we're helping our kids by going, let me tell you all the reasons why you don't need to worry about that.
Okay.
What actually happens is you shove your kid further into the corner because they don't feel seen or heard.
Ooh. Okay.
This will change your life as a parenting method.
Okay.
You ready?
Yep.
This is all you say. Would you like me to give you advice, or do you just need me to listen?
Okay. I can do that.
95% of the time, my kids say, I just need you to listen.
Okay.
They're getting it out of their head by coming to you.
Yeah.
And I have the same dynamic with one of my daughters where she comes to me and I've become her blankie emotionally.
Sure.
And then I immediately try to go, but that's not an issue and that's not an issue. And that's good that you have that fight with that friend because she's a jerk anyway.
Yeah.
And she just is coming to be heard. That's it. And I keep the anxiety around because she's not resolving it in a healthy way because I'm fighting with her about whether or not it's actually legitimate to feel this way. So I'm also making her feel less than for having these worries.
I trust you. I trust you when you say this. But there's a part of me that feels like, but she doesn't see if she's struggling with this, I just have to explain to her that this is how it will work. But
here's the thing. Here's the second mistake. We think it's our job as parents to fix the things they're worried about.
Absolutely. It feels like an obligation. You're only as happy as your least happy child, they say.
But here's the thing. When you step in to fix it, you are telling your child, I don't think you can.
Right. Absolutely.
Or I don't think you can face this.
You don't have what it takes.
Yes.
Let me do it for you.
Yes. And I made this mistake for years. I was creating a learned helplessness in my kids. I was entrenched in this toxic pattern of my daughter coming to me with her concerns and worries, which were very, very valid, and me trying to fix them because I was worried. But all she felt was, Mom doesn't hear me, and this is actually a big deal. And she thinks that simple solution is going to fix it. And the truth is, the simple solution always fixes it. But she's not coming to you about the stuff she's talking about.
Yeah.
She's actually expressing that deeper emotion of this hurts, or I'm scared, or I don't feel good enough. And when we stay up here, like, let's get rid of this and let's take care of that and don't think about it this way, we're just trying to help. We just love them.
Yeah.
The deeper thing, the deeper wound that they keep having trigger this anxiety, it doesn't actually get addressed. And so when you listen and just listen and listen, anything else, great. Is there anything you need from me? Because then what happens is you're teaching them how to think strategically, make requests, and ask for the help that they need.
Yeah.
This all comes back to, by the way, this high five habit in the mirror. Because if you can't stand in the mirror and see a human being that's trying, that's struggling, that's anxious, that feels insecure, and still go, I hear all that and I got you, and we're going to get through it. You're going to constantly be seeking that assurance in everybody else about the surface level things in your life. When the real issue is something much deeper. And when you start to connect with yourself at a deeper level every single morning and see a human being and celebrate them, no matter where they are, even if the wedding stuff is falling apart or the bridesmaids are complaining with each other and I don't even know the stuff, or you're just worried you're not going to fit into the dress, or you're worried about where people are going to sit at the tables, or you're worried about who's going to show up,
all
or you're
the
worried
things.
about all the things. You can stand with yourself with all those things going on and still love and support and celebrate yourself, and know that no matter what happens, whether the seating arrangement gets right or not, or that you got your own back.
Yeah.
You're going to see yourself through it.
I love that you're a fan of therapy. You talk about it. And also finding out the right medication, maybe even, like you said, knowing if you have the right diagnosis. Like, that's huge because
it's so liberating.
Once you like really truly understand your brain, which, we can probably spend a whole nother hour talking about that. It just doesn't make sense that right now the standard of care is we ask a couple of questions. We don't look at the organ, and then we decide what's going on with you. Are you a fan of therapy for kids, and at what age? And
any age you need it. I'm a fan of talking about everything.
Yeah. Did you send your kids to therapy?
When they needed it, absolutely. When our kids, when our son started sleeping on the floor.
At what age?
At the age of 8. And it went from one night.
His bedroom or on the floor in your room?
Ours.
Okay.
And it went from one night to 3 months. We got a therapist, all right.
Yeah.
And that's when I started to learn, I'm really screwing this up because by letting him stay on the floor, I'm actually communicating, you're right. You're not strong enough to sleep through the night.
So this brought up an email I got from a mom this week who said she ended up with a daughter who ended up being very suicidal, extreme bullying, etc. And she kept telling her, like, it's going to make you tougher. This is how girls are. Like, you're going to be okay. I went through this in middle school too, all those things. And she said, the one thing I regret not doing was taking it serious enough.
Die by suicide?
No.
Oh,
Daughter's
okay.
alive.
When you said regret, I was like,
her regret was that she didn't transfer her to another school and realize it was. So, when I think about like, okay, you can fix it yourself. I believe in you. I trust you. How do we find that balance?
Well, I think in extreme situations like that, you got to listen to your kid and the experts.
Yeah.
Like if your kid is crying that much for help and is suicidal, get them out of the environment they're in.
Yeah.
Period. If you have a kid that's got chronic anxiety and they're starting to opt out of life, you need support in supporting them in inching toward the things that are scaring them, because it's only through facing the things that are scaring them. And that doesn't mean striding into a school where you're getting bullied to the point of wanting to die by suicide.
Yeah.
But if you're afraid to go out, they're afraid to go out of the house, or afraid to invite somebody over, or afraid to...
Which is really common right now in this age group, like 13 to 19.
I think it's also common coming out of the pandemic.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it probably has a lot to do with that. They're afraid to drive their cars. They're afraid to go off of social media.
See,
yet
I
they
think
hate
that
being
this,
on
by
it.
the
Like,
way, is a lot of our overparenting.
Ah.
I think that we have so bubble wrapped our kids because we don't want them... It hurts when your kid is in pain, that we don't force them to do things that are a struggle. And I've certainly succumbed to this. After a long day of work, do I want to fight with my kid about whether or not they should have their phone in the room? No.
Right. That's
Should I have done that sooner? Of course. Because what I didn't realize about our kids and their phones is that part of the problem with phones in their bedrooms after a certain hour is they feel obligated to be available to their friends.
And to know what's going on with everyone everywhere.
Yep. And so there is a psychology driver that is more powerful than they are. And as parents, it's important to kind of know when to draw the line and when not, even though it hurts, even though they're going to hate you. Look at the same stuff our parents said to us, but I think it's more complicated with technology. It really is, because they're on their laptops for school. and they're on their phones doing FaceTime in study groups, and they're on their phones in FaceTime playing video games, and that's how a lot
they
of
were
them
on their
socialize.
phones and on their devices, and they were forced to be so, like first graders all the way through the pandemic.
Well, I remember being on the phone upstairs talking to my best friend Jody Bricken in secret at 11 o'clock
with
at
one
night.
of the cords that went
and
like
all
that.
of a sudden, mortified because my father picks up and is like, all right, you two, I can hear you. Hang up the phone. You're like, oh my God, okay, hang up the phone. I gotta go, Jody. We're way up past our bedtime.
Yeah.
And we are not doing that with our kids.
Right.
Because they have a whole world in their hand. And so I do think one really important thing that we put in place way too late was a basket in the kitchen with a charging station. And after a certain time, our kids had to have it in the basket.
I love that tip.
And that's where my phone goes in my bathroom at night. That's where I charge it, even in a hotel, no matter where I am, because I can't be trusted.
Yeah.
I'm going to grab it and look at it.
Yeah. Well, talking about the high five habit, I was in preparation for our time together today, I was thinking about how that's like one of the first things you teach kids. Like if you notice, like little kids, they learn to wave goodbye and they go high five, and so why not teach them this habit and to give it to themselves too? And so that's what I love about the book. It's so helpful for people any age. You're not saying like this is going to fix somebody who's has some deeper issues to deal with, but it's a good strategy.
Let me tell you a story. So a really important story that I think, actually there's two. One is in the book and one happened yesterday.
Okay.
So a woman who was in a domestic violence shelter, massive childhood trauma, just escaped a very abusive relationship. She's lost everything.
Mm-hmm.
And she wrote to us from a domestic violence shelter and said that what the high five habit has taught her after 5 days is that she knows that she has a lifetime of healing ahead of her. She knows she has a tremendous amount of work to do. But now she knows that she can have her own back. And that's like one of those moments where when that clicks inside somebody, now it's not going to change the reality of what she's facing. It's not going to change the very real obstacles that she has from a psychological and economic everything perspective.
But it was the moment.
Her.
Yeah.
And her ability to rise up and to face these things.
Mm-hmm.
And the second one was yesterday. So this circulated in an email to our team this morning because I like to see from our audience what's the impact of what we're doing. And so we circulate an email every morning with screenshots of comments or emails or stuff of what people are saying. And there was a woman that said, now keep in mind, the High Five Habit book is not even out yet.
Mm-hmm.
I've only just shared it on social media. Can't even really get into the deep science, which we only scratched at the surface on in our conversation.
Mm-hmm.
She said that she was at an AA meeting and somebody stood up in the AA meeting and shared the High Five Habit.
You're kidding.
No. And said to everybody, you have got to get on the bandwagon with this. Because we all need to wake up every day and see a human being who is trying.
Wow.
And who needs encouragement and support.
Wow.
And to think that a simple idea backed by science is already going viral and helping people not only help themselves, but help other people by sharing it.
Yeah.
It is the most just magical and exquisite thing in the world.
And it's got to feel amazing.
It does. I think it's very timely that I'm talking to you and doing this interview. There is so much about your work, your story, the work that you're putting out now that is what I need to hear. And so, I'm sitting here in a home that we were building in southern Vermont. And about 2.5 years ago, I had a cracking, if you will. I think that's the word that you use too, where I'm like, I can't keep going like this. I've got to make some changes. I can't continue to be a workaholic. I cannot be racing all over the place. I have got to make some changes. And so now I am sitting here in my new home that is still under construction. And we've just sold our home of 24 years outside of Boston. And I for the first time in 23 years, am experiencing such devastating anxiety about all the changes that I've put in place that I've literally spent the last 2 weeks completely disassociated, and I went back on medication, and I'm having this experience where it's almost like I'm on a really bad drug trip, and I know that it's going to end and that the feelings are going to level out, and yet I want the feelings to stop.
Okay. Well, first of all, I'm so proud of you for getting back on the meds. There's a time and season.
Yes, that's true.
And as trauma survivors, we get activated when big change happens.
I hadn't even thought about the fact that it has a link to all the trauma I've been working on.
That is the whole thing.
And that's why your book, Happy Days, was just like, holy cow. I mean, this just landed right in my lap at the right time. Because why don't you tell the story about how, because I found the introduction of the book really interesting, about how this actually started in 2016.
Yeah. Well, it's not dissimilar to what you're referencing. And I'll begin by saying that, actually, let me first just speak back to you, and then I'm going to share that story. So I want to send a lot of compassion and gratitude to the dissociated part, because that part of you has done a really good job just getting by each day. Gratitude to the anxious part, love and compassion to the anxious part for revealing that you need a little extra support right now as you do deeper work. Okay. And just hold you there, because when we've been there and then we come back, it's like there's shame around that. There's so much terror around that, but it's a beautiful witnessing to see that these parts of you are coming up to give you information. And I just want to honor you for that. Self is qualities of curiosity. And so there's 3 questions you can start to ask yourself in the moment when the anxiety comes up. Instead of pushing the anxiety down, you can befriend it. And you can ask 3 questions. You can say, okay, what do I notice about the anxiety? So where does it live in my body? Would you want to do it with me right now?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Are you connected to the anxiety in this moment?
Not in this moment, but
is there something else?
Familiar with it, so I'm more.
Well, is there anything else that might be up right now that that's a protector part that you're like, I want to kind of talk to?
It's interesting now that we're talking about it. I feel a little anxious.
Okay. So
I'm so programmed to run that staying still, which is what this new house in southern Vermont represents, this real quiet place, I feel tingly all over right now.
Okay. So there's a tingly, a desire to run, and then like this little anxiety kind of right back in the background.
Completely.
Okay, cool. Could we ask the tingliness and the desire to run to maybe just go in go out on the patio and have a coffee or have a cup of tea and just take a minute just to give us a little space to talk to the anxiety? Would that be okay with them?
Sure.
Okay. So just taking a moment to check in. You can close your eyes if you want, you can breathe, whatever you need, but just check in gently with the anxiety and ask, where is it in the body?
Right here.
Right in your chest.
Yeah, like gripping like that.
Gripping. Any other ways you would define it? Colors, shapes?
It's like kind of hands like this. And I'm also really warm under my armpits, but I'm not sure if that's menopause shit happening or what. But
okay.
This, and then right here.
Tight, warm.
Mm-hmm.
Does it have an age or a gender?
Oh, female and older.
Older. Okay.
Yeah.
Like older than you are now?
Yeah, I think. I don't know. I don't think of myself as 50s, but
No, but is it like when you say older, like 80s or like older,
I
like
just feel like these like witch hands. It's really fucking
witchy?
weird. Yeah.
Witchy. Okay, cool. Witchy. Anything else that you notice about it?
As I talk about it, it sort of like pulls back a little.
Okay. What do you know about it?
It's familiar.
Does it have any stories or visuals that attach to it?
More like the first words that came to mind is, I don't like this. I don't want to be here.
Okay, that's the part that's coming in that's saying, I don't like this, I don't want to be there, is another part. It's a protector. Would that protector feel safe enough to go have some tea for a moment?
I'll send that protector outside the office. Hang on.
And I want to thank that protector and just let that protector know that I've totally got you and I'm not going to take anxiety to anywhere that they don't need to go. Really high level right here. We're not going to go anywhere we shouldn't go today. Okay. I just want to thank that protector for coming in and just say, have a tea, but thank you so much for speaking up. Thank you. So with a little bit more permission just to talk to this part, what is the anxious part need?
The first thing that came up was a hug, reassurance, that I don't have to do this on my own.
Yeah. Yeah. Does that part of you know that you are here? That your self, that your resourced, undamaged self, does it know that you're here?
I think so. I think so. And the reason why I say it like that is because I think one of the things that I've been struggling with for so long because of workaholism and being busy and on the move as kind of my go-to protector. As long as I'm on the move, I'm going to be okay. As long as I'm busy. I have had a deep feeling of loneliness.
Yeah. So
being in a quiet place up here makes me feel really lonely.
Okay. Thank you for saying that. How do you feel towards the part?
I feel sad towards her, tired of feeling lonely. I get it. It's painful.
So she knows you're here and you have some compassion for her. I don't want to put the words in your mouth, but
yeah. Oh, sure.
Yeah. Okay. Beautiful. If she wasn't in such an extreme role of doing, and anxious.
Yeah.
What else would she be doing?
She'd be hanging out with her friends.
Hanging out with her friends. Okay.
A lot. She'd be doing fun shit. I don't know. Going for a hike.
Going for a hike. Okay. Would you be there? Self? Yeah. Okay. In your own mind's eye, can you just take a moment to just visualize taking her by the hand and or however it visualizes for you, however it comes to your vision. Taking her on that hike. See who is around. See whatever comes up. You can tell me whatever comes up, whatever you want to share.
I can totally see it. Totally. There's a black bear that is out with her cubs up there. And so I just see us walking down the path and there's the black bear.
How does she feel with you on the hike?
Happy that I'm there.
Yeah. And is there anything that you want to say to her on this hike?
I'm not going anywhere.
Can you make a commitment to her right now that when you notice her, you can just take her by the hand and go on the hike and remind her that you're not going anywhere?
Is when you say notice her, are you talking about when that feeling comes back? Is that what you mean?
Yeah. Yeah. When the anxiety starts to come in, can you just let her know?
I am not going to let you be there alone.
Right. And make a commitment, maybe that you'll just take her on that hike. Maybe even literally go for a hike with her.
Totally.
Beautiful. How does she feel now? Just to close it out, how does she feel?
I think some of the protectors have come back in.
Okay. That's okay. They're welcome back. They're welcome back, Mel, because
they're like, no, I don't want to go to hike. You know, like
that's okay. That's okay. They're welcome back. I want to thank them for stepping aside for the time that they did. They did a beautiful job. They are welcome back. We can always ask them to step aside when there's some space, but right now it's okay. They can come back. And you now have what you have right now, Mel, is direct access from self to the part. It's so beautiful to witness. You have direct access from your adult resourced internal parent self to the part of you that's so protective and anxious. And you've given her a full media alert that you are available to her when she needs you.
Yeah.
Major step forward.
What are the steps? Like, how do you begin? Like, I think a lot of people can relate to the cracking because as you were telling the story of 2016, like, I can't, for me, I have been saying for 2 years, I can't handle one more thing. Like, I can't keep operating like this. I can't. So how does somebody recognize, number one, that there is that cracking? And number two, what is the next best couple things just to get started? Because obviously it's a long, slow, deep healing journey.
It is. It's a long, slow, deep healing journey. But what one of my readers said to me today in an interview, she said, I feel like Happy Days will take 5 to 10 years off of your therapy because with the direction and the awareness and the understanding, it actually just fast forwards things for people because it takes away all of the time that you need to figure it out. And then you can go deeper. But first steps for how do you know you're cracking into something? And this doesn't necessarily mean that you are remembering something that you dissociated from, but that you're accepting something that you've been running from. One is to accept that we're all running. Two, it's to start to notice some of the behavioral patterns, triggers, and the ways that you respond to them. So at first we can kind of begin to take an inventory of like the responses, right? The extreme ways that we react. So are you turning to drugs and alcohol? Are you overworking? Are you burning yourself out? Are you feeling extreme gastrointestinal issues? Are you having insomnia? Are you having a lot of physical conditions that you can't get a diagnosis for? Are you having extreme anxiety? Are you struggling to, not rage out of nowhere?
Right. Well, one of your theses is that I love, because it's very hopeful and it's true, is that there is you talk about the self with the capital S. And that there is a returning to that is desired by all of us. And in many ways, for me, this book felt not as much about trauma as it did about spirituality, because you can list all those negative things, but the flip side of this is that there is this, as you say, calm, confident, that there is a person in a self energy inside of you that you're trying to get back to. Yeah. And the cracking is a moment when you realize that all this running that you've been doing away from that calm, compassionate, confident self is no longer working.
Yeah. In many ways, the cracking is a great sign. Because
it doesn't feel like it.
It definitely doesn't feel like it. But it's a great sign. Much as my therapist said, I said, why did I remember this now? I was 36 years old. And by the way, statistics show that most people don't remember their dissociated trauma until their 50s.
Really?
Yep.
Wow.
I think the stat was like 80% or something crazy. My therapist told me. So when we're cracking, what's happening is, in my therapist's case, she said, you were safe enough to remember. You had gotten yourself to enough safety to remember. So I want to once again applaud you, because all the work that you've done on yourself, decades of devotional work that you've done for yourself and shared with the world, has gotten you to a place where you're safe enough now to crack into more. And it's fucking terrifying. But the best advice I could give anyone right out of the bat is to start to connect to that self energy. So how? So self is there. Self is ready to go. It's this totally loyal parent that's just ready to pick you up and the second that you ask for help. Self is qualities of curiosity. And so there's 3 questions you can start to ask yourself in the moment when the anxiety comes up. Instead of pushing the anxiety down, you can befriend it. And you can ask 3 questions. You can say, okay, what do I notice about the anxiety? So where does it live in my body? Would you want to do it with me right now?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Are you connected to the anxiety in this moment?
Not in this moment, but
Okay. Is there something else?
Familiar with it, so I'm more.
Well, is there anything else that might be up right now that that's a protector part that you're like, I want to kind of talk to?
It's interesting now that we're talking about it. I feel a little anxious.
Okay. So
I'm so programmed to run that staying still, which is what this new house in southern Vermont represents, this real quiet place, I feel tingly all over right now.
Okay. So there's a tingly, a desire to run, and then like this little anxiety kind of right back in the background.
Completely.
Okay, cool. Could we ask the tingliness and the desire to run to maybe just go in go out on the patio and have a coffee or have a cup of tea and just take a minute just to give us a little space to talk to the anxiety? Would that be okay with them?
Sure.
Okay. So just taking a moment to check in. You can close your eyes if you want, you can breathe, whatever you need, but just check in gently with the anxiety and ask, where is it in the body?
Right here.
Right in your chest.
Yeah, like gripping like that.
Gripping. Any other ways you would define it? Colors, shapes?
It's like kind of hands like this. And I'm also really warm under my armpits, but I'm not sure if that's menopause shit happening or what. But
okay.
This, and then right here.
Tight, warm.
Mm-hmm.
Does it have an age or a gender?
Oh, female and older.
Older. Okay. Yeah. Like older than you are now?
Yeah, I think. I don't know. I don't think of myself as 50s, but.
No, but is it like, when you say older, like 80s or like older?
I feel like these like witch hands. It's really fucking
witchy.
Weird. Yeah.
Witchy. Okay, cool. Witchy. Anything else that you notice about it?
As I talk about it, it sort of like pulls back a little.
Okay. What do you know about it?
It's familiar.
Does it have any stories or visuals that attach to it?
More like the first words that came to mind was, I don't like this. I don't want to be here.
Okay, that's the part that's coming in that's saying, I don't like this, I don't want to be there, is another part. It's a protector. Would that protector feel safe enough to go have some tea for a moment?
Yeah. I'll send that protector outside the office. Hang out
and I want to thank that protector and just let that protector know that I've totally got you and I'm not going to take anxiety to anywhere that they don't need to go. Really high level right here. We're not going to go anywhere we shouldn't go today. Okay. I just want to thank that protector for coming in and just say, have a tea, but thank you so much for speaking up. Thank you. So with a little bit more permission, just to talk to this part, what is the anxious part need?
The first thing that came up was a hug, reassurance, that I don't have to do this on my own.
Yeah. Yeah. Does that part of you know that you are here? That your self, that your resourced, undamaged self, does it know that you're here?
I think so. I think so. And the reason why I say it like that is because I think one of the things that I've been struggling with for so long because of workaholism and being busy and on the move as kind of my go-to protector. As long as I'm on the move, I'm going to be okay. As long as I'm busy. I have had a deep feeling of loneliness.
Yeah. Yeah. So
being in a quiet place up here makes me feel really lonely.
Okay. Thank you for saying that. How do you feel towards the part?
I feel sad towards her, tired of feeling lonely. I get it. It's painful.
So she knows you're here and you have some compassion for her. I don't want to put the words in your mouth, but
yeah. Oh, sure.
Yeah. Okay. Beautiful. If she wasn't in such an extreme role of doing, and anxious.
Yeah.
What else would she be doing?
She'd be hanging out with her friends.
Hanging out with her friends. Okay.
A lot. She'd be doing fun shit. I don't know. Going for a hike.
Going for a hike. Okay. Would you be there? Self? Yeah. Okay. In your own mind's eye, can you just take a moment to just visualize taking her by the hand and or however it visualizes for you, however it comes to your vision?
Mm-hmm.
Taking her on that hike.
Mm-hmm.
See who is around. See whatever comes up. You can tell me whatever comes up, whatever you want to share.
I can totally see it. Totally. There's a black bear that is out with her cubs up there. And so I just see us walking down the path and there's the black bear.
How does she feel with you on the hike?
Happy that I'm there.
Yeah. And is there anything that you want to say to her on this hike?
I'm not going anywhere.
Can you make a commitment to her right now that when you notice her, you can just take her by the hand and go on the hike and remind her that you're not going anywhere?
Is when you say notice her, are you talking about when that feeling comes back? Is that what you mean?
Yeah. Yeah. When the anxiety starts to come in, can you just let her know?
I am not going to let you be there alone.
Right. And make a commitment, maybe that you'll just take her on that hike. Maybe even literally go for a hike with her.
Totally.
Beautiful. How does she feel now? Just to close it out, how does she feel?
I think some of the protectors have come back in.
Okay. That's okay. They're welcome back. They're welcome back, Mel, because
they're like, no, I don't want to go to hike.
That's okay. That's okay. They're welcome back. I want to thank them for stepping aside for the time that they did. They did a beautiful job. They are welcome back. We can always ask them to step aside when there's some space, but right now it's okay. They can come back. And you now have what you have right now, Mel, is direct access from self to the part. It's so beautiful to witness. You have direct access from your adult resourced internal parent self to the part of you that's so protective and anxious. And you've given her a full media alert that you are available to her when she needs you.
Yeah.
Major step forward.
I want to just unpack that for everybody that's
watching this and listening, and that is that here's what I got from it. When you feel the anxiety take over, take a breath, go into your body, locate where it is.
Notice.
Notice it. Notice it. And then you had me visualize the color or the gender or the shape of it.
That's getting to know. What do I know about it? Mm-hmm.
What do I know about it? And then you asked me if I had other experiences where I had felt the same thing. Is that the next thing that happened?
We go into what does it need?
What does it need? What does it need? And I said a hug.
Usually what you'll hear when you ask parts what they need, they'll say, I need to play. I need a hug. I need to be creative. It's always the stuff that we want as a kid. The stuff we didn't get.
You actually write about this in your book with your son. The 4 S's. What are they?
Yeah. So this IFS is broken down in chapter 7, which is called Love Every Part. And then there's another chapter called Reparenting Yourself, where I had this massive aha moment that all the parenting advice that I was getting from Dan Siegel and all the beautiful psychologists out there that do therapy for children was so profound when working and co-creating with my son. And I thought to myself, well, nobody ever did this for me. And instead of being pissed about that, I said, wait a second, I can do that for me. I can give myself that hug. I can use the 4 S's, as Dan says, to be seen, safe, soothed, and secure. I can create that environment for myself internally. That was a big change for me. That was a big turning point.
One of the things that you also introduce is this heart hold. So can you walk everybody through that? Because I think that is a way that you can provide those things to yourself.
Yes, absolutely. And it's actually something I really want to recommend to you right now, because when I was cracking, this hold was something that really, really helped me on a moment-to-moment basis. So placing your hand on your heart and your other hand on your belly, and just notice which hand is most natural to your heart. For me, it's the right.
Yeah, the right.
You just went right to the right. So it's the right. Some people it's the left. So really have to decide what's right for you. The other hand on the belly, and just take a deep breath in and extend your diaphragm. And on the exhale, just relax your diaphragm and just keep with that belly breath, taking a deep breath in and letting it go. Another deep breath in and let it go. And you might even affirm things to yourself. I'm safe right now. I have so much compassion towards all of my parts. My self energy is here with me. Even just doing the hold is enough right now to settle my system, to help me get back into that parasympathetic state, to just feel relief.
That's great.
Yeah. Go to it all day.
It's nice on the belly too. Really nice.
Really nice. Another one would be tapping on the gamut point. So there's a point between the ring finger and the middle finger called the gamut point.
Outside of the hand, right?
On the back side of the hand. Yep. And I like to call this point the holy shit point. When I was early in the trauma recovery, I was terrified of getting in an elevator. Why? It's out of control, right?
Really?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. The elevator, I was coming out of the trauma, and the elevator was just the scariest thing for me. So I had to do this. There was times I had to get in an elevator. And so I was tapping that point.
And what does that do?
This point sends a message to the amygdala that it's safe to relax. When you tap that point, you also want to take the benefit of affirming the desired feeling. I am safe. I am safe. I am safe.
Wow. That's so cool. So how long did that last, to be nervous about getting into an elevator?
A few months. I did a lot of EMDR, which I write about in the book, eye movement sensitization and reprocessing.
Yeah.
Really beneficial. Could be great when you're in a crisis. And by the way, offline, I have a person for you.
Oh, I'm already doing it.
Good.
Yes, you're right. It is extremely helpful.
Gives you this, it gives you a settled sense of safety and helps you reprocess even the minor things in the moment. And the stuff that we just did, the body work, that's based on somatic experiencing, which is a body-based trauma therapy. And so as you can see, there's a through line between all the therapies that I chose. And that is, I believe that they're all very therapeutic yet spiritual practices.
So let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Because I found your book and your work, especially as it's evolved, to be really profound in the spiritual connection to mental health, to healing. And so how would you describe that?
The therapies that I was drawn to, I know my guide spirit, God led me to them because they were going to resonate with me most. And the reason I believe that they have such strong spiritual undertones is IFS, connect to self. So for years, I was teaching A Course in Miracles. We have the ego and we have our higher self, and our higher self can dissolve the ego through the experience of forgiveness. Protector parts, self energy, self can dissolve through compassion, forgiveness, courage, creativity. It's all the same thing, just a different way of accessing it. The EMDR I loved so deeply because it allowed me to work with the subconscious. And to not have to recall big things, but just allow. I fell deeply, madly in love with somatic experiencing because it let my body do the work, which is a very spiritual experience. And it got me out of the storyline and into the body. And I believe that the people who founded, particularly knowing some of them, I think that they're very spiritual people, though they may not be able to admit that in their clinical environments. But there's such a through line. And I also just believe that God gives us what we can handle, but also what we resonate with.
Well, can we connect the dots between what you just said about God giving you not only what you can handle, but what you resonate with, and the fact that you are somebody that people around the world come to for learning how to manifest.
Right.
And talk to me and us, anybody who's watching, about the connection between manifesting and this cracking open, that you are attracting something that you need when you go down this journey.
Well, what I'm really proud of is that my books on manifesting aren't really manifesting light. They're deep books, like Super Attractor, Manifest a Life Beyond Your Wildest Dreams. Okay, I hooked you in, but now I get you to work. And these books, The Universe Has Your Back. These are books on how to manifest, but they're books on how to undo the blocks to the presence of that super attractor power that we all have.
Yes.
And so the more we crack open to. Amma said that, and Amma, the hugging saint, she said that when an eggshell cracks from the outside, it's broken. But when it cracks from the inside, it's reborn. So that cracking is rebirthing into the truth of who you are, the self within you, the super attractor power within you. And the more you release the blocks to the presence of that self energy, the closer you get to becoming just a more aligned human. And when I say aligned human, I mean a human having a human experience with a direct line to higher level consciousness, whether you call that compassion, courage, curiosity.
At the end of the day, it's all that capital S self energy.
That's right.
Is what you're talking about. So,
which is the same as spiritual energy, which is the same as listening to a spirit guide, which is the same as it's the voice of love. It's the undamaged resource soul of who we are.
I think that's the simplest way to say it, that trauma is blocking you from accessing the source of who you are.
Yes.
And that is love.
And let's just call it unresolved trauma is the block, because the trauma, when transcended, can be one of the greatest gifts you've ever received.
Hey, it's Mel. Thank you so much for being here. If you enjoyed that video, by God, please subscribe because I don't want you to miss a thing. Thank you so much for being here. We've got so much amazing stuff coming. Thank you so much for sending this stuff to your friends and your family. I love you. We create these videos for you. So make sure you subscribe. Mwah.